Prologue. He didn't recognize me. I stood 3 feet away from Theron Wolfsbane, close enough to smell the pine and smoke scent that used to drive my wolf wild. Close enough to see the new scar bisecting his left eyebrow, and he looked right through me. Just another human mercenary. Nobody important. Nobody worth remembering. The irony was so sharp it drew blood. "Your reputation suggests competence," he said, his voice deeper than I remembered, rougher. 10 years had carved him into something harder. But I need more than competent. I need someone expendable. Expendable. The word landed like a fist to the gut. "You mean human?" I said, keeping my voice flat. "Professional. Nothing like the girl who used to whisper his name like a prayer. If I die protecting you, it won't start a pack war. I'm politically neutral by virtue of being irrelevant." Something flickered across his face. Shame, maybe, or recognition of his own cruelty. But it was gone in a heartbeat. Precisely. He moved to pour himself whiskey, his back to me. 3 bodyguards dead in 2 months. Someone wants me eliminated, and they're not being subtle about it. I cataloged every detail with the cold precision I'd learned in a decade of survival. The tension in his shoulders. The way his hand trembled slightly as he poured. The dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Good. He should suffer. He should drown in guilt and paranoia and the weight of his crown. "I'll keep you alive," I said. "For 500,000 euros. Confident." He turned, and those gold eyes, the same eyes that had watched me crawl away to die, assessed me with clinical detachment. Most humans are intimidated by my presence. You're not even slightly afraid. Fear is a luxury I can't afford. I held his gaze without flinching. I've survived worse than an alpha's dominance display. Have you? He moved closer, and I forced myself not to react. Not to let my pulse spike. Not to let the dormant place in my chest, where my wolf used to live, betray me with even a flutter. "What's your name?" "Kade Frost." Your real name. The question was a trap, a test, and for one terrible second, I wanted to tell him. Wanted to watch his face when he realized that Kiera Ashford, his discarded mate, his biggest regret, his dead ghost, was standing right in front of him. But that would ruin everything. The plan. The revenge. The 10 years I'd spent building toward this moment. "That is my real name?" I lied smoothly. "I don't have another one. Not one that matters." He studied me for a long moment, and I wondered if some part of him knew. If the bond, broken, shattered, supposedly dead, was whispering truths his conscious mind couldn't accept. But no. He'd believed the rejection would kill me, and his arrogance wouldn't let him consider that I might have survived. "When can you start?" he asked. "Now." I pulled out my tablet, all business. "Walk me through the attempts, methods, timing, suspected perpetrators, and I'll need access to your private quarters, your schedule, my private quarters." One eyebrow rose. "That's rather intimate for a bodyguard." "I've been more intimate with you than anyone," I thought. "I know every scar on your body, every nightmare that makes you wake up screaming, every broken piece you hide behind that alpha mask. Your last 3 bodyguards died because they weren't close enough to respond to threats." I said instead, "I don't make the same mistakes twice." "So yes, Alpha King, your private quarters, your shadow, your constant companion. Get used to it." His jaw tightened. Then, surprisingly, he smiled, small and bitter and edged with something that might have been respect. "Very well, Miss Frost. Welcome to the Wolfsbane pack." He extended his hand. "Try not to die in your first week." I looked at his hand, the same hand that had once held mine with such tenderness, the same hand that had clenched into a fist while his counsel destroyed me, and made a choice. I took it. The contact sent a jolt through my system. The dormant place in my chest stirred, just slightly, like something deep in hibernation sensing spring. No, that wasn't possible. My wolf was gone. The bond was broken. This was just sense memory. Phantom pain, nothing more. But Theron's eyes widened, just for a fraction of a second. Like he'd felt it too. Felt something impossible and familiar and utterly wrong. Then he pulled his hand back, and the moment shattered. "Your quarters are in the East Wing," he said, his voice carefully neutral, connected to mine through an adjoining door. "Security protocols will be explained by my beta." Understood. I shouldered my bag, heading for the door. "Ms. Frost." I paused, looking back. "Why did you take this contract?" he asked. "The file my people compiled on you. You have a strict policy against supernatural jobs. You've turned down contracts worth twice this amount. So why accept mine?" "Because you destroyed me. Because I've spent 10 years planning your downfall. Because I want you to suffer the way you made me suffer. And I can't do that if you're already dead." "Personal reasons," I said. "Is that a problem?" "No." But suspicion flickered in his eyes. "Just curious what personal reasons would make someone break their own rules. Everyone has a past they're running from." "Alpha King." I smiled, cold and sharp. "Even you." I left before he could respond. And as I walked through the corridors of the compound that had once been my prison, I felt something dark and satisfied settle in my chest. He didn't recognize me. Perfect. By the time he figured out who I really was, I would have already destroyed everything he loved. Starting with him. Chapter 1. The Ghost Job. The contract came through at 2:47 a.m., which meant someone was desperate. I sat in my Berlin apartment. If you could call a fortified box with blackout curtains and enough weapons to stage a small coup an apartment, and watched the encrypted message materialize on my screen. The glow painted my scars blue in the darkness. I'd stopped sleeping more than 4 hours a night years ago. Sleep meant dreams, and dreams meant remembering what I used to be. I wasn't her anymore. High-value client. Supernatural sector. 3-month contract. Protection detail against coordinated assassination attempts. Compensation 500,000 half up front. My finger hovered over the delete button. I'd spent a decade building a reputation in the human world as someone who didn't ask questions and didn't miss targets. Kade Frost. The name I'd stolen from a dead mercenary's papers was known for 3 things: efficiency, discretion, and an ironclad rule against supernatural contracts. The shifter world could burn for all I cared. But then the client designation loaded, and my blood turned to ice. Theron Wolfsbane. Alpha King of the Northern Territories. My hand clenched around my coffee mug hard enough that the ceramic cracked. Hot liquid spilled across my desk, but I didn't move. Couldn't move. That name, his name, was a brand across every atom of my being even now. Even after everything. Especially after everything, I forced myself to breathe. In through the nose, 4 counts. Out through the mouth, 4 counts. The tactical breathing exercise that had kept me alive through firefights and interrogations and the long, cold nights when the phantom pain of a missing wolf threatened to shred what remained of my sanity. Theron Wolfsbane thought I was dead. Hell, I should be dead. Every medical text, every supernatural expert, every piece of shifter lore said the same thing: a rejected mate bond was fatal. The wolf dies first, retreating into the mind until it drags its human half into the grave with it. Rejection was a death sentence. Just slower and more agonizing than a blade to the heart. But I'd always been too stubborn to die properly. The memory surfaced before I could stop it. 10 years old, but fresh as a bleeding wound. The rejection had been public. Of course it had been public. Theron stood on the dais in the great hall of the Wolfsbane compound. surrounded by his council of silver, haired alphas and elegant she, wolves draped in silk and judgment. I'd been brought before them like a criminal, still wearing my server's uniform from the pack restaurant where I worked double shifts to pay for my mother's medical care. Kiera Ashford. His voice had been flat, empty. Not the voice that had whispered my name like a prayer when the bond first snapped into place 3 months earlier. I, Theron Wolfsbane, Alpha of the Northern Territories, reject you as my fated mate. The bond had screamed. I'd screamed. The sound that tore from my throat wasn't human, wasn't wolf. It was something breaking at a molecular level. You don't have the bloodline, one council member had said, her tone bored. No alpha ancestry. Your pack is barely registered. You'd make the kingdom look weak. It's for the good of all wolves. Another had added, as if that made it noble. Theron had watched me collapse on the marble floor, watched me convulse as my wolf tried to claw its way out of my skin to reach him, to fix what was breaking. His jaw had been tight, his hands fisted at his sides, but he hadn't moved, hadn't stopped them, hadn't chosen me. Accept the rejection someone had commanded. Or die here. Those are your options. I'd crawled to my knees, blood streaming from my nose, and locked eyes with the male who was supposed to be my forever. His face was carved granite. His eyes were empty. I accept, I'd whispered. And my wolf had screamed one final time before going silent. They'd thrown me out like garbage. Left me in the woods beyond packed territory to die, because everyone knew rejection was fatal. And why waste resources on a corpse? But I didn't die. My wolf went dormant, not dead, I realized later, but so deeply asleep it might as well have been. The bond collapsed into jagged fragments that tore at my insides like glass, and I lay in those woods for 3 days, shaking and bleeding and dying by inches. On the 4th day, I got up. On the 5th day, I walked until I found a human town. And on the 6th day, I stopped being Kiera Ashford entirely. I blinked back to my apartment, to the cracked mug and the spilled coffee, and the contract still glowing on my screen. Theron Wolfsbane needed protection. Theron Wolfsbane, who'd thrown me away like I was nothing. Who'd stood by while his council decided I wasn't worth the air I breathed. Who'd let me crawl into the forest to die alone, because I didn't have the right bloodline, the right connections, the right worth. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. I clicked, accept contract. My handler, a twitchy information broker who knew better than to ask about my past, called within 3 minutes. Frost, are you insane? Dimitri's accent was thicker when he was agitated. You have rule. No supernatural jobs. You make me put in database. And now you take Alpha King contract. I changed my mind. I leaned back in my chair, still staring at Theron's name. My fingers traced the silvered scars that wound up my left forearm. The ones that had appeared when my wolf went dormant, like my body was marking the death of half my soul. When do I start? 2 days. They send private plane to Berlin. But Kade, he paused. This is suicide job. 3 attempts on his life in 2 months. Someone wants Alpha King very dead. You are good, but you are human now. Going into shifter territory, into wolf politics. You will be weakest person there. Good. I ended the call and opened my weapons cabinet. Dimitri was wrong about one thing. I wouldn't be the weakest person there. I'd be the most dangerous. Because Theron Wolfsbane had no idea that the mate he'd murdered was about to walk back into his life. He'd hired me to protect him, to keep him safe from the enemies circling his throne. How poetic. I'd get close, earn his trust, learn every weakness, every vulnerability, every secret that kept the great Alpha King awake at night. And then, when he was at his most exposed, when he finally felt safe, I'd destroy him the way he'd destroyed me. Not with a quick death, That would be mercy, and I'd stopped believing in mercy the night he stood silent while they threw me away. No, I'd dismantle his kingdom piece by piece. I'd ruin his alliances, expose his failures, turn his pack against him. I'd make him feel as powerless and worthless and disposable as I'd felt bleeding out in those woods. And only then, when he'd lost everything, his crown, his pack, his pride, would I tell him the truth. I pulled out my modified Glock, the one with silver bullets that I'd never thought I'd point at shifters again. Ran my fingers over the inscription I'd carved into the grip years ago. Survival is the best revenge. I'd been wrong. This would be the best revenge. I began to pack. 8 hours later, I stood on the tarmac of a private airfield outside Munich, watching a sleek black jet with the Wolfsbane insignia descend through low clouds. My new identity was locked in place. Colored contacts turning my green eyes hazel, my dark hair now cut brutally short and dyed platinum, enough strategic makeup to alter my face shape. I'd gained 20 pounds of muscle since the rejection, and the scars I'd acquired in a decade of violence had rewritten my body's story. I looked nothing like the broken girl who'd crawled out of those woods. The jet's door opened, and a tall, cold-eyed wolf descended the stairs. Beta, I assessed immediately. The way he carried himself screamed second in command. His nostrils flared as he approached. "You smell human." He said it like an accusation. "That's because I am human." I kept my voice flat, bored. Kade Frost didn't get intimidated by shifters. "You have a problem with that. Take it up with whoever hired me. The Alpha King hired you." His eyes raked over me, cataloging weapons. The visible ones, at least. Against my advice. I told him a human couldn't protect him against supernatural threats. "Then I guess we'll see if he made a mistake." I shouldered my gear bag. "Are we going to stand here comparing dick sizes? Or are you going to get me to the client?" His lip curled, flashing fang. "My name is Marcus Stoneridge, Beta of the Northern Territories. You'll address me with respect." "I'll address you however I want. You're not my client." I walked past him toward the jet. "And respect is earned, Beta, not demanded." I felt his anger like heat at my back, but he didn't stop me. Good. Kade Frost was abrasive, difficult, and utterly unimpressed by supernatural posturing. It was part of the persona, part of the armor. And it would keep anyone from looking too closely at the woman underneath. The jet's interior was all leather and dark wood, reeking of money and power. I strapped in, closed my eyes, and tried not to think about the fact that in less than 2 hours, I'd be face to face with Theron Wolfsbane for the first time in 10 years. The male who'd killed me. The male who had no idea I'd come back from the dead. My hands were steady as I checked my weapons. Good. Ghosts didn't have room for trembling. Chapter 2. The Alpha King's Shadow. The Wolfsbane compound looked like something out of a Gothic nightmare, all stone towers and iron gates. Perched on a mountainside in the Austrian Alps like a predator surveying its territory. I'd been here once before, 10 years ago, when Theron had first brought me to meet his pack. Back then, I'd been awed by the grandeur, intimidated by the wealth and power radiating from every carved archway. Now I saw it for what it was, a fortress built on fear and dominance. Perfect. The jet landed on a private strip carved into the mountain itself, and a convoy of black SUVs waited on the tarmac. Marcus gestured sharply for me to follow, his hostility palpable. I wondered how many times he'd advised Theron against hiring a human. How many times the Alpha King had ignored him. Good. Discord in the ranks made my job easier. We drove in silence through gates that required retinal scans and past guard stations manned by wolves whose eyes tracked me with predatory focus. I kept my expression bored, my posture relaxed, even as my pulse kicked up. Every instinct I'd buried for a decade screamed at me to run, to fight, to shift. Except I couldn't shift. Not anymore. The dormant place where my wolf used to live was a black hole in my chest, silent and cold. Sometimes I imagined I could feel her stirring in the depths, a phantom limb I knew wasn't really there. The doctors I'd seen in that first terrible year, the human ones who'd tried to explain my survival, had theories. Trauma-induced dissociative state, psychogenic amnesia affecting the limbic system. They'd had no idea that I wasn't human, and I'd never told them the truth. That I was the first and only feral human. A rejected mate who'd survived by becoming something new. Something that shouldn't exist. The SUV stopped in front of the main building, and Marcus finally spoke. The Alpha King is in his study. You'll meet him there. Alone. He paused. Try not to embarrass yourself by pissing your pants. His dominance tends to overwhelm humans. I smiled, showing teeth. I've faced worse than an overgrown dog with authority issues. His eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the insult. But I was already out of the vehicle, gear bag slung over my shoulder. A staff member in formal attire appeared to guide me, but I waved them off. I'd memorized the compound's layout from the architectural files I'd hacked last night. I knew exactly where Theron's study was. I'd been there before, after all. The night he'd told me the bond was a mistake. The night before everything ended. My boots echoed on marble floors as I walked through corridors lined with portraits of previous Wolfsbane alphas. Generation after generation of powerful males with cold eyes and colder hearts. I passed wolves who stopped to stare at the human invading their territory, but none challenged me directly. My reputation had preceded me, it seemed. Kade Frost. The mercenary who'd taken down a human trafficking ring in Prague single-handedly. Who'd survived 3 tours in conflict zones that even shifters avoided. Who'd never failed a contract and never showed mercy. They didn't know Kade Frost was a ghost built on the bones of a dead girl. I reached the study door, massive oak carved with wolves mid-hunt, and paused. Beyond this door was the male who'd haunted every nightmare, every rage-fueled training session, every moment I'd spent building myself into a weapon. My hand went to the silver knife at my hip, not to use, just to remember it was there. Then I knocked. 3 sharp raps. Enter, his voice. God, his voice. It slammed into me like a physical force, deeper than I remembered, rougher, edged with authority that made my bones vibrate. For one terrifying second, the dormant place in my chest lurched, like something was trying to wake up. No, that wasn't possible. The bond was broken. My wolf was gone. This was just phantom pain. Sense memory, nothing more. I pushed open the door and stepped into the lion's den. Theron Wolfsbane stood behind a desk, made from a single massive slab of black walnut, his back to me as he stared out floor, to ceiling windows at the mountain range beyond. He was bigger than I remembered, at least 6 foot, 4, shoulders broader, body harder. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with the black tribal tattoos that designated him as Alpha King. 10 years had carved him into something more dangerous, more powerful, more broken. I could see it in the rigid line of his spine, the tension in his shoulders, in the way he held himself like a man always braced for attack. You're early. He didn't turn around. I was told humans prefer punctuality. I wasn't expecting you to exceed it. I don't like waiting. I stepped further into the room, every sense on high alert. And I don't like wasting time on pleasantries. You hired me to keep you alive. Let's discuss why someone wants you dead. Direct. I appreciate that. He turned then, and I got my first full look at him in a decade. My carefully constructed armor cracked. He was devastatingly beautiful in the way apex predators were beautiful, lethal and compelling and utterly wrong to touch. His face was all brutal angles and hard lines, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow that hadn't been there before. His eyes were still that impossible shade of gold amber, but now they were haunted, hollow. The eyes of a man who'd lost something vital and never stopped looking for it. Good, I thought viciously. I hope it destroys you. Those eyes swept over me now, assessing. Clinical, looking for weakness, for threat. I saw the exact moment he dismissed me as both. Just another human mercenary, nothing special, nothing dangerous. He didn't recognize me. He looked right at me, at the woman he'd once called his soul mate, his destiny, his forever, and saw a stranger. The broken fragments of the bond in my chest twisted like knives. Your reputation suggests you're competent, he said, moving to pour himself a whiskey from a crystal decanter. He didn't offer me one, but I need more than competent. I need someone expendable. I raised an eyebrow. Expendable. Human. He took a drink, still watching me. If you die protecting me, it won't start a pack war. No supernatural alliances will be broken. No blood feuds will be triggered. You're politically neutral by virtue of being irrelevant. Once, his casual cruelty would have destroyed me. Now I just filed it away with all the other evidence of exactly who Theron Wolfsbane really was. A monster in a tailored suit. I'm also alive, which is more than I can say for the 3 shifter bodyguards you've gone through in 2 months. I moved closer, noting the way his nostrils flared slightly, scenting me, finding only human. So maybe expendable is exactly what you need. His jaw tightened. Those males died protecting me. Then they weren't good enough. I stopped in front of his desk, meeting those gold eyes without flinching. I will be. For 500,000 euros, I'll be whatever you need. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, at my boldness. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold mask. You're not intimidated by me. Should I be? Most humans are, even the trained ones. He circled the desk slowly, a wolf's prowl. My dominance. My alpha presence. It affects humans more strongly than it affects other wolves. It triggers your prey instincts, makes you want to submit or flee. He was close now. Too close. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the pine and smoke scent that had once driven my wolf wild with need. That scent had changed, gone darker, tinged with something bitter, but it was still fundamentally him, and I felt nothing. Selayar whispered something deep inside. You feel everything. I don't have prey instincts, I said softly. I had them beaten out of me a long time ago. Try your alpha tricks on someone who gives a damn. His eyes narrowed. Then, deliberately, he let his power unfurl. It hit like a shockwave, raw dominance. Ancient and overwhelming, the weight of an apex predator's while pressing down on every survival instinct. It screamed at me to lower my eyes, bare my throat, submit to the superior force. I'd felt this before. 10 years ago, when the bond was new and his power had felt like coming home instead of drowning. Now I just smiled. Is that it? I asked. Because I've been waterboarded by Russian intelligence officers. I've had cartel enforcers try to break me for 3 days straight. Your dominance is just another form of torture, Alpha King, and I'm very good at surviving torture. For the first time, genuine emotion crossed his face. Respect, and something darker, interest. He pulled his power back, and I didn't let myself sag with relief. What's your name? He asked. Kade Frost. Your real name. That is my real name. The lie was smooth, practiced. I don't have another one. Not one that matters. He studied me for a long moment, and I wondered if he could sense the truth underneath. If some part of him recognized the mate he'd destroyed, even though every logical piece of evidence, said I was dead and gone. But no. He'd believed the rejection would kill me, and his arrogance wouldn't let him consider that I might have survived. Tell me about the threats, I said, breaking the silence. Who wants you dead? And why haven't you already eliminated them? Theron's expression went cold again. He returned to the window, hands clasped behind his back. Pack politics. The Northern Territories are the largest consolidated wolf region in Europe, which means I have power that makes others uncomfortable. Others being? 3 rival alpha factions who believe I've grown too influential. They want the territory fractured, weakened. If I die without an heir, the kingdom dissolves and the territories revert to independent packs. You don't have an heir. It wasn't a question. I'd done my research. Theron was unmated, publicly at least, and had produced no children. His shoulders tensed. No, why not? You're the Alpha King. Taking a mate and producing heirs should be priority 1. My fated mate is dead. The words were flat, empty. I won't take a chosen mate, it would be disrespectful to her memory. I almost laughed. Disrespectful. He'd thrown me away like garbage, let me crawl off to die, and now he was playing the grieving widower. How convenient, I said, letting acid drip into my tone. You get to play the tragic hero mourning his lost love, while avoiding the political complications of an actual mate. He whirled on me, power crackling in the air. You know nothing about. He stopped himself, visibly reasoning in his wolf. When he spoke again, his voice was controlled. My personal life is not your concern. Your concern is keeping me alive long enough to expose the conspiracy. Fine. I pulled out a tablet. Walk me through the attempts. Methods timing suspected perpetrators. For the next hour, he detailed the assassination attempts with military precision. Poisoned wine at a council meeting. A sniper during a territory inspection. A rigged car bomb that had killed his driver and 2 guards. Professional hits. Well-funded. Inside knowledge. Someone on your council is feeding information to the assassins, I said. Has to be. The timing is too precise? I know. His jaw clenched. But I don't know who. And I can't purge the council without proof, or I risk civil war. So you hire a human mercenary to be your living target. Smart. I closed the tablet. Where do I sleep? The East Wing. Your room is connected to mine through an adjoining door. My pulse spiked. Excuse me? You're my bodyguard. You need to be close. He raised an eyebrow. Is that a problem, Miss Frost? Yes, my broken bond screamed. Being that close to him would be torture. No problem, I said coolly. As long as you don't try to alpha, stare your way into my room at night. I sleep armed, and I don't hesitate. Noted. Was that amusement in his eyes? Marcus will show you to your quarters. Dinner is at 8. Formal attire. I don't do formal. You do now. You're representing me. Which means you'll dress appropriately. He turned back to the window, dismissing me. Welcome to the Wolfsbane pack, Miss Frost. Try not to die in your first week. I left before I could do something stupid, like put a bullet in his skull. Marcus was waiting in the hallway, his expression sour. The alpha has lost his mind, bringing a human into pack business. Then you have nothing to worry about, I said. Because if I'm as incompetent as you think, someone will kill him soon and you can say I told you so. He bared his teeth. The alpha is. An explosion shattered the west wing. The shockwave threw Marcus into the wall. I was moving before the debris stopped falling, muscle memory taking over. Gun out, safety off. Sprint toward the sound, not away. Because that's what Kade Frost would do. And because Theron Wolfsbane was still in his study, and despite everything, despite the hate, despite the revenge plan, despite 10 years of seething rage. I couldn't let him die. Not yet. Not before he knew what he'd done. I burst back into the study as the second explosion hit. The windows shattered inward in a spray of glass. Theron was already moving, his body blurring as he partially shifted. Bones cracking, muscles expanding, claws extending. Then I saw the sniper laser tracking across his chest. DON! I tackled him. 200 pounds of Alpha King hitting the floor as bullets stitched the air where his head had been. We rolled behind the desk as more gunfire erupted. Coordinated attack, I snapped. Explosions were distraction. Real threat is. The door burst open. 3 males in tactical gear, faces covered, weapons raised. Not shifters. Human mercenaries. Someone had hired humans to kill a shifter king. Smart. No supernatural signatures to trace. I put 2 bullets in the first attacker before he cleared the threshold. The second one got off a shot that grazed my shoulder. Pain, hot and sharp. But I'd had worse. Before I dropped him with a headshot. The third one was faster. He rolled, came up firing, and his bullet caught me in the vest. Cracked rib. Possibly 2. Then Theron was there. He moved like violence given form, no longer pretending to be civilized. His claws ripped through Kevlar and flesh like tissue paper. Blood sprayed. The attacker's scream cut off wetly. Silence. We stood in the wreckage of his study, bodies cooling on the floor, the scent of gunpowder and death thick in the air. My shoulder was bleeding. My ribs screamed, and Theron was staring at me with an expression I couldn't name. You didn't run, he said. You hired me not to run. No. You tackled me. Put yourself between me and the bullets. He stepped closer, blood dripping from his claws. His eyes were more wolf than man. Why? Because I need you alive long enough to destroy you, I thought. Because that's the job, I said. He reached out slowly, carefully, like I was a wild thing that might bolt. His hand, still half-shifted, still clawed, touched my bleeding shoulder with shocking gentleness. You're hurt. I've had worse. You're human. Something raw entered his voice. You could have died. So could you. That's why I'm here. We stood there, too close, his hand still on my shoulder. And for just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, something desperate and lost and aching. Then it was gone. He stepped back, his hand falling away. His claws retracted. The mask slammed back into place. Marcus, he called, his voice carrying. Code Black. Lock down the compound. I want every male on patrol and every entry point secured. The beta appeared in the doorway, took in the carnage, and went pale. Alpha. Now. Theron's power cracked like a whip. Marcus fled. Theron turned back to me. Come. The medical wing will treat your injuries. I can handle it myself. That wasn't a request. His eyes flashed gold. You saved my life. The least I can do is ensure you survive long enough to do it again. He walked out, clearly expecting me to follow. I did, because Kade Frost would. Because the job required it. Not because some broken, pathetic part of me responded to the alpha command in his voice. Not because his touch had burned like acid and honey. Not because for one terrible second, when his hand had touched my shoulder, the dormant place in my chest had stirred. Just phantom pain, I told myself as I followed him through corridors filled with running wolves and emergency lights. Just sense memory. Just the echo of something that died 10 years ago. Nothing more. Chapter 3. Proximity and Poison. The medical wing smelled like antiseptic and wolf, a combination that made my stomach turn. I sat on an examination table while a pack healer named Dr. Ven stitched the graze on my shoulder with practiced efficiency. She was older, silver threading through her dark hair, and her hands were steady as she worked. You're lucky, she said. Another inch to the right, and it would have hit the brachial artery. You'd have bled out in minutes. Luck had nothing to do with it. I watched Theron through the observation window. He stood in the hallway. talking in low tones with Marcus and two other wolves I didn't recognize. His shirt was ruined, splattered with blood. The attacker's blood. But he hadn't bothered to change. Just rolled up his sleeves and started issuing orders like the attack had been a minor inconvenience. Alpha King. Always in control. I wondered what it would take to make that control crack. Dr. Venn followed my gaze. He doesn't usually let humans this close. You must have impressed him. I did my job. You saved his life. She tied off the last stitch and reached for bandages. That's not doing your job. That's loyalty. Wolves respect loyalty above almost everything else. I said nothing. Kade Frost didn't do loyalty, just contracts and cold cash. The doctor wrapped my shoulder efficiently, then moved to check my ribs. Her fingers pressed gently along my side, and I couldn't quite hide the wince. 2 cracked ribs, she confirmed. I can give you something for the pain. No drugs. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. Anything that dulled my reflexes was a liability I couldn't afford. At least let me wrap them. She was already reaching for compression bandages. And you'll need to take it easy for a few days. No, strenuous. Not an option. She paused, meeting my eyes. You're human. Your body doesn't heal like ours. Push too hard and you'll puncture a lung. Then I'll be careful. Her expression said she didn't believe me, but she finished wrapping my ribs in silence. When she was done, she handed me a clean shirt. Black. Generic. Clearly from the compound supply. The Alpha requested you join him for dinner once you're cleared. It's in an hour. I'm not exactly dinner party material right now. He was insistent. Something flickered in her eyes. He's different with you. I've been pack healer for 30 years, and I've never seen him this protective of someone outside the pack. My chest went tight. He's protective of his assets. I'm an investment. If you say so. She didn't sound convinced. You're cleared to go. But if those ribs start giving you trouble, come back immediately. I slid off the table, testing my range of motion. Pain, but manageable. I'd fought through worse. Thanks, Doss. She caught my arm as I headed for the door. Be careful around him, she said quietly. The Alpha King. He carries guilt like other people carry scars. It's eating him alive. And he doesn't know how to let it go. Don't become another weight he has to bear. I pulled free. I'm nobody's burden. But her words followed me as I left the medical wing. Theron was waiting in the hallway. His conversation with Marcus finished. The beta shot me a look of pure disdain before stalking away. You told the doctor no pain medication? Theron said. Not a question. Pain keeps me sharp. Pain keeps you compromised. He started walking, and I fell into step beside him. You took a bullet for me tonight. The least you can do is accept basic medical care. I took a bullet because of poor positioning. Won't happen again. He stopped abruptly, turning to face me. We were alone in the corridor, emergency lights casting sharp shadows across his face. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more. Mercenary. His eyes searched my face. Someone who'd calculate the risk before taking a bullet. You didn't hesitate. You just moved. Because 10 years ago, my wolf would have thrown herself in front of him without thought. Because somewhere in the twisted wreckage of what we'd been, instinct still lived. I couldn't tell him that. Reflexes, I said. I don't think. I react. It's how I've stayed alive this long. How long? He started walking again, slower this time. How long have you been doing this? Doing what? Selling your life for money. The question was too perceptive, too close to truths I couldn't afford to examine. Long enough to be good at it? That's not an answer? It's the only one you're getting. I kept my voice flat. My past is my business, Alpha King. You hired me for my skills, not my life story. Something dark crossed his face. Most humans would use my title with more respect. I'm not most humans? No? He studied me with those unnerving gold eyes. You're not. We'd reached a wing I didn't recognize, residential, judging by the doors and the more intimate lighting. Theron stopped in front of a heavy wooden door carved with running wolves. Your room, he said, pushing it open. I stepped inside and barely controlled my reaction. It was beautiful. Massive 4-poster bed with dark linens. Sitting area with a fireplace. Floor to ceiling windows overlooking the mountain valley. Bathroom visible through an open door. All marble and gold fixtures. This wasn't a guest room. This was a room for someone important. This is too much, I said. It's the closest room to mine. He pointed to a door on the far wall. That connects to my quarters. It stays unlocked from your side. If there's another attack, I need you able to reach me immediately. The thought of being separated from him by just one door made my skin crawl. Too close? Way too close. Fine. I moved to the window, putting distance between us. Dinner in an hour, the doctor said. Yes, council dinner. Formal. He paused. There's appropriate clothing in the closet. I took the liberty of having options, prepared based on your measurements from your file. I turned slowly. You had someone go through my file. I vet everyone who gets this close to me. His expression was unreadable. Your background is interesting. Kade Frost didn't exist before 12 years ago. Before that, you're a ghost. My heart kicked into overdrive, but I kept my face neutral. Lots of people reinvent themselves. Not like this. You appeared fully formed, new identity, new life. Like your past was burned to ashes. He took a step closer. What are you running from, Ms. Frost? You, I thought. I'm running from you and the mate bond that broke me and the girl who died in those woods. Nothing you need to worry about, I said. Unless you think my past is going to jump out of the shadows and try to kill you. Everything about you is my concern now. Another step. You live in my compound. You sleep 20 feet from my bed. You've already taken a bullet meant for me. I need to know if there are threats attached to you. There aren't. Prove it. We stared at each other, the air thick with tension. This close, I could see the fine lines around his eyes, the scar bisecting his eyebrow, the shadow of stubble on his jaw. He looked older than his 32 years. Weathered. Worn down by whatever weight he carried. Good. I hoped it crushed him. I can't prove a negative, I said finally. Either trust me or fire me. Those are your options. His jaw clenched. Then, surprising me, he stepped back. Dinner. 1 hour. Don't be late. He left, the door closing with a soft click. I stood there, breathing too fast, my shoulder throbbing, and my ribs aching, and the dormant place in my chest feeling like it was full of broken glass. Then I went to the closet. Inside, I found a collection of formal wear that probably cost more than I'd made in my first year as a mercenary. Dresses, slacks, blouses, all in dark colors. All exactly my size. I chose black pants and a charcoal silk blouse because it covered my scars and allowed freedom of movement. Added a tailored jacket that hid my shoulder holster. Looked in the mirror and saw Kade Frost staring back, hard, cold, untouchable. Not Kiera Ashford. Never her again. I left my room and made my way to the formal dining hall, following the low murmur of voices. The council dinner was a study in predator politics. 12 wolves sat around a table that could have comfortably seated 20, each positioned with careful attention to hierarchy and allegiance. Theron sat at the head, Marcus at his right hand. The rest were a mix of older wolves with calculating eyes and younger ones who watched Theron like he was both their greatest asset and their biggest threat. Every head turned when I entered. The hostility was immediate and palpable. A human at a council dinner. The insult was deliberate, and Theron knew it. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said, not standing. "This is Kade Frost, my new head of security. She'll be attending all council meetings moving forward. A human." An older female with iron, gray hair, and cold blue eyes spoke up. "Councilwoman Vera, if I remembered the briefing correctly, this is highly irregular Alpha King. So are assassination attempts in my own compound." Theron's voice was mild, but power threaded through it. "Ms. Frost has already proven more effective than our previous security arrangements. She'll remain until the threat is neutralized." "She took a bullet for him," Marcus said, his tone grudging. "During tonight's attack, I saw it myself." The council members exchanged glances. I kept my expression neutral as I took the empty seat at Theron's left. Another deliberate positioning, putting me in a place of honor and trust. "Tell us about the attack," demanded a thin male with a nervous energy. "Councilman Price, 3 mercenaries breached the compound. How?" Theron looked at me. "Ms. Frost." I met his eyes, then addressed the table. "Professional team. Military training. They used the explosions to mask their entry point and drew security resources to the west wing while they hit the east. Inside knowledge of compound layout and guard rotations." Silence. Then Vera leaned forward. "You're suggesting one of us is a traitor." "I'm suggesting someone with access to high-level security intel is feeding information to your enemies." I let my gaze travel around the table. Whether that's someone in this room or a lower-level staff member with connections is unclear. "But the leak exists." "Ridiculous," Price sputtered. "We've all been loyal to the Wolfsbane Pack for." "Loyalty isn't permanent," I interrupted. "It shifts with circumstances. Money, power, revenge. All excellent motivators for betrayal. You dare." He half rose from his seat. "I dare because the Alpha King hired me to keep him alive, and I can't do that if I'm worried about hurting feelings." I smiled without warmth. "So yes, Councilman Price, I dare. And I'll keep daring until we find the leak." Marcus's lip curled, but Theron's expression held something like satisfaction. Dinner was served then. Elaborate courses I barely tasted. Playing my role as the blunt human instrument, while the wolves engaged in verbal sparring disguised as polite conversation. I watched them all, cataloging body language, noting who deferred to whom, who avoided Theron's eyes, who seemed too eager to please. Any one of them could be the traitor, or all of them. Pack politics were viper pits at the best of times. Add in a powerful Alpha King with no hair and a fractured council, and it became a bloodbath waiting to happen. Perfect conditions for my revenge. Halfway through the meal, Theron's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went carefully blank. "Excuse me." He stood, all smooth power and controlled grace. "I need to take this." "Marcus, continue without me." He left, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Vera turned her cold eyes on me. "Tell me, Miss Frost, what does a human mercenary know about shifter pack dynamics?" "Enough to recognize dysfunction when I see it." I met her gaze steadily. "You want him dead?" Gasps around the table. Marcus went rigid. Vera's smile was thin and dangerous. "That's quite an accusation." "Not an accusation. An observation." I leaned back. "You don't respect him. None of you do. You see him as a figurehead propped up by his bloodline. Not a leader worth following. And you resent that he won't take a mate and secure the succession, because it keeps you all in limbo." "The Alpha King is young," Marcus said tightly. "He has time. Does he?" I let the question hang. 3 assassination attempts in 2 months suggests his enemies don't think so. "We are not his enemies," Vera said, each word clipped and precise. "Then act like it." I stood, done with the performance. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're circling him like carrion birds waiting for him to fall." And when he does, you'll tear the kingdom apart fighting over the scraps. I left before they could respond, following the path Theron had taken. I found him on a balcony overlooking the valley, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gripping the railing hard enough that the stone cracked under his fingers. "I understand," he was saying, voice rough. "Yes, I'll handle it." "No, don't. Just..." "I'll handle it." He ended the call and stood there, staring out at the darkness. I should have left. Should have returned to the dinner and my role as blunt instrument. But something in the line of his shoulders, the way he held himself like a man barely keeping it together, stopped me. "Bad news?" I asked. He didn't turn. "An old wound reopening. Nothing that concerns you." I moved to the railing, keeping a few feet between us. The night air was cold, sharp with pine and approaching snow. "Your council hates you. They fear me. It's different." "Is it?" He finally looked at me, and the rawness in his eyes hit like a fist. "They fear me because I'm powerful and unpredictable. They hate me because I won't let them control me." He smiled, bitter and broken. "The curse of being Alpha King. Everyone wants to use you, and no one actually wants you." The echo of my own pain in his words made my chest tight. But I couldn't afford sympathy. Couldn't let myself see him as anything but the enemy. "Sounds lonely," I said. "It is." He turned back to the valley. "I had someone once. My fated mate, she would have balanced me. Made this bearable." His hand clenched on the railing. "But I lost her." "How?" The silence stretched so long I thought he wouldn't answer. "I killed her," he said finally, quietly. "Not with my hands, but with my choices. And she died hating me, and I'll carry that until my last breath." I should have felt triumphant. Should have reveled in his guilt, his pain, his self-inflicted torture. Instead, I felt the broken bond fragments in my chest twist viciously, and for one terrible second, I wanted to tell him the truth. Wanted to scream that I was right here, that I'd survived, that he hadn't actually killed me even though he'd tried. But that would ruin everything. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked instead. "Because you're the first person in 10 years who looks at me and doesn't see the Alpha King." He met my eyes. "You see a job, a target to protect. Nothing more, nothing less. It's refreshing, honest." If only he knew how dishonest it all was. "I should get back to the dinner," I said, needing distance, needing air. "They'll be tearing me apart in absentia." He smiled faintly. "You defended me. Earlier." "Why?" "Part of the job. No." He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. "You challenged the entire council on my behalf. That's beyond your contracted duties. They're a liability. If I'm going to keep you alive, I need them to understand that I won't tolerate their politics interfering with security." Is that all? The question felt like a trap, like he was searching for something specific in my response. "What else would there be?" I asked. He studied me, those gold eyes seeing too much. "I don't know. But there's something about you." He reached up slowly, carefully, and touched the edge of my jaw. Just his fingertips, the barest contact. Lightning forked through me. The dormant place in my chest screamed, sudden and vicious and completely impossible. My wolf, dead, gone, shredded by the rejection, surged against the inside of my ribs like she was trying to claw her way to the surface. I jerked back, gasping. Theron frowned? "What's wrong?" "Nothing." I pressed a hand to my chest, forcing my breathing steady. Cracked ribs. "Your touch hurt." He looked at his hand like it had betrayed him. "I'm sorry." "I didn't mean." "That's fine." I backed toward the door. "I need to rest." "Long day." "Kade." I fled before he could say more, practically running through the corridors to my room. I slammed the door, locked it, and collapsed against it, breathing too fast, my heart hammering. That wasn't possible. My wolf was gone. The bond was broken. There was no scientific, magical, or supernatural explanation for what I just felt. Except, I pressed my hand to my chest, right over where the bond fragments lived, and concentrated. Searched the darkness for any sign of, there, faint. So faint I might have imagined it. A pulse. A heartbeat. A spark of something that had been dead for 10 years. My wolf. Still dormant, still silent, but not quite as dead as I'd thought. And she'd responded to his touch. No, this couldn't happen. I couldn't let the bond pull me back in. Couldn't let whatever broken, pathetic remnants remained override 10 years of survival and rage and carefully constructed armor. I had a plan. I had revenge to execute. I had. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out with shaking hands. A message from Dimitri, my handler. Received intel, additional contract on Wolfsbane. High level buyer. Wants him dead within 30 days. Payout. Vort 2 million. Multiple teams in play. You're not the only hunter in the woods. I stared at the message, then at the adjoining door to Theron's room. Someone else was coming for him. Someone with serious funding and serious intent. And despite everything, despite the revenge plot, despite 10 years of hate, despite every logical reason to let him die, I couldn't. Not yet. Not before he knew what he'd done. Not before he understood exactly what he'd destroyed. Not before I'd had my revenge on my terms, in my time, the way I'd planned it. I opened my laptop and started digging into the intel Dimitri had sent. Outside, the night deepened, and somewhere in the compound, Theron Wolfsbane carried his guilt like a crown of thorns. He had no idea his dead mate was sleeping 20 feet away. And I had no idea how much longer I could keep that secret. Chapter 4. Fractures in the Mask. 3 days after the attack, I still couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it, that impossible pulse from the dormant place in my chest. My wolf, not quite dead. Just buried so deep that 10 years of silence had convinced me she was gone forever. But Theron's touch had stirred her. One brush of his fingers against my jaw, and she'd surged like a drowning thing breaking the surface for air. I sat in the darkness of my room at 3 a.m., cataloging the ways this complicated everything. The revenge plot required cold precision, emotional distance, absolute control. I couldn't afford to have my supposedly dead wolf waking up and screaming for her mate every time he got within arm's reach. I needed to fix this. Shut it down. Bury her deeper. But I didn't know how. A soft sound from the adjoining room made me freeze. Footsteps. Theron was awake too, pacing like a caged wolf. I'd noticed the pattern over the past 3 nights. He rarely slept more than a few hours, and when he did, he woke gasping like a man clawing his way out of nightmares. The Alpha King was haunted. Good. I pulled up the intel Dimitri had sent and continued my analysis. The new contract on Theron's life came from a shell corporation with ties to the European Council of Alphas, the governing body that oversaw all major pact territories. Someone on that council wanted Theron dead badly enough to fund multiple assassination teams. The question was why. Theron was powerful, yes, but he'd been Alpha King for 8 years without major incident. What had changed? What had made him suddenly expendable? My phone buzzed. Another encrypted message from Dimitri. Found connection. Wolfsbane blocked vote on territory redistribution 6 months ago. 3 council alphas stood to gain significant land power. Vote failed because of him. Motive. I stared at the message. Territory redistribution meant redrawing pack boundaries, consolidating power, eliminating smaller packs. Theron had blocked it, which meant he'd protected the smaller territories from being absorbed. Noble, principled. Completely at odds with the male who'd thrown away his mate for political convenience. I didn't know what to do with that cognitive dissonance. A knock on my door, The one leading to the hallway interrupted my thoughts. I checked the security feed on my tablet. Marcus stood there, his expression grim. I opened the door. It's 3 a.m. Beta, the Alpha wants to see you. Now. He didn't wait for a response, just turned and walked away. I grabbed my jacket, checked my weapons, and followed. Marcus led me through empty corridors to a part of the compound I hadn't explored yet. Older, darker, with stone walls that radiated cold. We descended a spiral staircase that seemed to go down forever. Where are we going? I asked. The vault. Marcus's voice echoed off stone. Where we keep our most valuable assets and our darkest secrets. Excellent. Both categories interested me. We reached the bottom and passed through a reinforced door that required retinal scan, fingerprint, and what looked like a magical ward that made my skin prickle. Beyond it was a large chamber lined with safety deposit boxes, display cases, and filing cabinets that probably predated the digital age. Theron stood in the center, examining a thick leather, bound book spread open on a reading table. He looked up when we entered, his eyes shadowed. Thank you, Marcus. You can go. The Beta hesitated. Alpha, are you certain? Go. Marcus left, shooting me a look that promised retribution if anything happened to his Alpha on my watch. Theron waited until the door sealed before speaking. I've spent the past 3 days investigating the council members. Looking for the traitor? He gestured to the book. This is the pack registry. Every wolf born into or adopted by the Wolfsbane pack for the last 200 years. I moved closer, scanning the names and dates written in various hands. And I found something that doesn't make sense. He turned the book toward me, pointing to an entry near the bottom of a page dated 15 years ago. This wolf, Kiera Ashford. She was registered as having found her fated mate. Me. My heart stopped. He was looking at my name. My real name. The record of what we'd been. I don't understand, I said carefully. What does your dead mate have to do with the traitor? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. He ran his finger down the page. Her rejection and death were recorded here. Standard procedure. But the details are sparse. No body was recovered. No funeral rites performed. It's like she just vanished. Rejected mates always die. Everyone knows that. The words tasted like ash. That's what I thought. But I started researching. He pulled out a folder, spreading papers across the table. There are documented cases. Extremely rare, but they exist. Of rejected mates surviving. They lose their wolves, lose their connection to the supernatural world, and essentially become human. Feral humans, they're called in the old texts. My blood turned to ice. Why are you telling me this? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. Because I think Kiera might have survived. He looked at me, and there was something desperate in his eyes. I think she's out there somewhere alive, and I need to find her. This was bad. This was very, very bad. Why? I forced myself to ask. If she survived, she's probably spent the last decade hating you. Hunting you even. You rejected her. Threw her away. Why would you want to find someone who has every reason to want you dead? Because I need to know. His hands clenched on the table. I need to know if she lived. I need to. His voice cracked. I need to apologize. To explain. To give her the closure I stole when I let them force me to reject her. Closure. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You think an apology would fix what you did. You think saying sorry I destroyed your soul makes it better. He flinched like I'd struck him. No. Nothing makes it better. But I have to try. I have to. He stopped, studying me with sudden intensity. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Fuck. I've seen enough broken people to know when closure is bullshit, I said. Some wounds don't heal, Alpha King. Some betrayals are permanent. If your mate survived, the best thing you could do for her is leave her the hell alone. I can't. The rawness in his voice was almost painful to hear. I dream about her. Every night. I see her crawling into those woods, bleeding and dying, because I was too much of a coward to fight for her. I wake up choking on her name, and if there's even a chance, even the smallest possibility, that she's alive, then what? You'll find her and beg forgiveness? Offer her what? Money. Power. A second chance at the bond you shattered. I step closer, letting anger seep into my voice. You don't get to do that. You don't get to ease your guilt by forcing yourself back into her life. If she survived, she built a new existence from the ashes you left. And you'd just be burning her down again. Is that what you'd want? He asked quietly. If you were her, the question hung between us, loaded with implications he couldn't possibly understand. It doesn't matter what I'd want, I said finally. I'm not her. He held my gaze for a long moment, and I saw the wheels turning behind his eyes. Saw him cataloging details, making connections, suspecting. Then he looked away, back to the registry. You're right. It's selfish. Cruel even. But I can't let it go. Not until I know for certain. Why now? I asked. Why, after 10 years, are you suddenly obsessed with finding out if she survived? His jaw tightened. Because someone sent me this. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to me. Inside was a single photograph. Grainy, clearly taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. It showed a woman with short platinum hair, dressed in tactical gear, taking down 3 armed men with brutal efficiency. It showed me. From a contract I'd completed 6 months ago in Prague. I received this a week ago, Theron said. No note, no explanation. Just this photo. And something about her. The way she moves, the way she fights. It reminded me of Kiera. She was training to be a pack warrior before we found out we were mates. She had this particular style, this efficiency. He trailed off, and I realized with creeping horror that some part of him recognized me even through the disguise, the changed appearance, the decade of distance. Some part of him knew. You think this is your dead mate. I kept my voice neutral, even as panic clawed up my throat. I think someone wants me to think it could be. He studied the photo. But I had Marcus run facial recognition. No matches to anyone in our databases. Whoever she is, she's a ghost. Maybe it's a mind game, I suggested. Someone knows about your guilt and is using it to destabilize you. Make you paranoid. Distracted. Maybe. He didn't sound convinced. Or maybe it's a message. Maybe Kiera survived and she's coming for me. Maybe this is her way of letting me know that she's out there watching. Waiting. And if it is, I asked, what would you do? He met my eyes, and the gold in them burned. I'd let her kill me if that's what she needed. I'd stand there and let her take her revenge, because I deserve it. I deserve every bit of hate and rage she's carried for 10 years. And if my death brings her peace, then you're an idiot, I said flatly. Because revenge doesn't bring peace. It just leaves everyone bloody and broken. You sound very certain of that. I am. We stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken truths and dangerous revelations. Then alarms shrieked through the compound. Theron's head snapped up, his eyes flashing gold. Another attack. We ran. The assault was bigger this time. More organized, more lethal. 6 attackers, all human mercenaries, all heavily armed. They'd breached the compound through the old service tunnels. The ones that hadn't been used in decades and apparently hadn't been properly monitored. Someone had given them the blueprints. Someone had shown them the weakness. The traitor was making their move. I caught up with Theron in the main courtyard, where pack warriors were engaging the attackers in brutal close combat. Gunfire echoed off stone. Blood painted the cobblestones. A young wolf went down screaming, her throat torn open by a blade. West Wing. Marcus shouted, materializing beside Theron. They're pushing toward the council chambers. They want the council members. Or they want me to think they want the council members, Theron said, his eyes scanning the chaos. This is a diversion. The real attack is. An explosion ripped through the east wing. My wing. His wing. The private quarters. I breathed. They're after personal intelligence. Files. Information they can use. Theron was already moving, his body blurring as he shifted partially, enough to increase speed and strength, but not enough to lose tactical thinking. I sprinted after him, my cracked ribs screaming in protest. We burst into the residential corridor to find 3 mercenaries ransacking rooms. One was coming out of my quarters carrying my laptop, the one with all my real identity files encrypted on the hard drive, the one that would destroy my cover if they cracked it. Down! I didn't hesitate, didn't think. Just fired. The shot took him in the shoulder. He dropped the laptop, and it skidded across the floor. His partners returned fire, and I dove behind a marble pillar as bullets chipped stone around me. Theron roared, an alpha command that made the air vibrate, and launched himself at the attackers. His claws extended fully now, 6-inch weapons that could shred Kevlar and bone with equal ease. He was magnificent and terrible, an apex predator unleashed. I provided covering fire, picking my shots carefully. 1 attacker down. 2. The third tried to run and I put a bullet in his leg. He collapsed, screaming. Theron was on him in seconds, claws at his throat. Who sent you? The alpha command rolled through the words like thunder. The mercenary gasped, his eyes wide with terror as Theron's dominance crushed down on him. I don't. They didn't. WHO. C. YOU. Council. The man choked out. One of the council members? They paid through intermediaries. We never met them directly, but the intel came from inside. From someone high up. Which council member? I don't know. They used code names? Dead drops. Blood bubbled on his lips. Theron's claws had pierced skin. Please, I'm just hired help. I don't. Theron. I touched his shoulder and he froze. Let him live. We can extract more information later. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't listen. His wolf was too close to the surface, too consumed by rage and the need to protect his territory. Then he pulled back, breathing hard, blood dripping from his claws. Secure him. Get him to the cells. Marcus appeared with 2 guards who dragged the mercenary away. The fighting in the courtyard had ended. 6 attackers, all dead or captured. Theron turned to me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. You saved my files. My personal intelligence. His gaze dropped to my laptop, still lying where the mercenary had dropped it. And yours. Just doing my job. Nogue. He stepped closer. You put yourself between armed mercenaries and documents. That's beyond your job. He frowned, like he was working through a puzzle. What's on that laptop that's worth dying for? Same thing that's on everyone's laptop. Banking information. Identity documents. 10 years of work. I bent to retrieve it, checking for damage. The casing was cracked, but the hard drive looked intact. I don't like the idea of my life being stolen by mercenaries. Show me. I looked up sharply. Excuse me. Show me what's on your laptop. His voice was calm, but there was alpha command beneath it. If there's nothing compromising, you won't mind proving it. This was the moment. The precipice. I could refuse, should refuse, and blow my cover. Or I could let him look at the heavily encrypted files he'd never crack in time and maintain the charade a little longer. My files are encrypted, I said. Even if I showed you, you wouldn't be able to access anything without my passwords. Which I'm not giving you. Then give me your word. He moved closer, and the intensity in his gaze pinned me in place. Your word that there's nothing on that laptop that threatens me or my pack. That you're exactly what you claim to be. A mercenary with no ties to my enemies. I should have lied smoothly. Should have given him the assurance he needed without hesitation. But something in his eyes, that desperate, aching need to trust someone, anyone, made me pause. And in that pause, I made a mistake. I'm not your enemy, Theron. His name felt strange on my tongue, intimate and foreign at once. Everything I've done since I got here has been to keep you alive, to protect you, even when you make it difficult. His eyes widened slightly at my use of his first name. Then something shifted in his expression, something warm and dangerous and utterly unexpected. You called me Theron, he said softly. Fuck. Kade Frost never would have done that. Kade Frost was professional, distant, formal. Slip of the tongue, I said quickly. The adrenaline? No. He was very close now. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his body, smell the blood and smoke clinging to his skin. You've never slipped before. You're too controlled for that. So why now? Because you were about to kill that mercenary. The lie came easier this time, because your wolf was in control and you weren't thinking strategically. I needed to break through to you, and using your first name was the fastest way to do that. He studied me for a long moment, and I held my breath, certain he'd call me on the lie. Then he smiled, small and sad and achingly genuine. Thank you for pulling me back, He glanced at the bodies littering the corridor, for not letting me become a monster. You're not a monster, I said before I could stop myself. Earned I. His smile turned bitter. I've killed for power. I've sacrificed people I cared about for politics. I let my fated mate die because I was too weak to fight for her. What would you call that? Human, I whispered. I'd call that human. We all make choices we regret. We all have blood on our hands. Even you? Especially me? We stood there in the carnage, two damaged souls pretending we didn't recognize the brokenness in each other. Then Theron reached out, slowly, carefully, like he had on the balcony, and touched my face. His palm curved against my cheek, his thumb brushing my jaw, and the dormant place in my chest exploded. My wolf surged up with a force that drove me to my knees. I gasped, clutching at my ribs, feeling her clawing at the inside of my skin like she was trying to break free. The bond fragment screamed, reached, pulled toward him with a desperation that shredded what remained of my control. Kade! Theron dropped beside me, his hands on my shoulders. What's wrong? Are your ribs? Don't touch me, I choked out. Just don't. But he didn't listen. His hands moved to my face, tilting my head up, and the bond fragments shrieked louder. And I felt it. For the first time in 10 years, I felt the echo of what we'd been, the ghost of the connection that had been ripped away. It was broken, jagged, incomplete, but it was there, a thread so thin it might snap with a breath, but undeniably present. Theron froze. His eyes went wide, his pupils dilating as gold swallowed the whites. What? His voice was hoarse. I can feel. No, this couldn't happen. Not yet. Not before I'd destroyed him properly. I shoved away from him, scrambling to my feet. It's nothing. Just pain from the ribs. The doctor warned me about this. That wasn't rib pain. He stood slowly, his gaze locked on me with terrifying intensity. That was. I felt something. A pull. A connection. Like nothing, I said harshly. You felt nothing because there's nothing to feel. I'm human, you're a wolf, and there's no bond between us. Kade, I need to check the perimeter. Make sure there are no more attackers. I backed toward the stairs, clutching my laptop like a shield. Secure your files. Question the prisoners. Find your traitor. Wait. I ran. I ran like the hounds of hell were chasing me, because in a way they were. I ran until I reached my room, locked both doors, and collapsed against the wall. My wolf was awake. Not fully. Not completely, but awake, stirring in the depths, responding to his touch, reaching for the broken bond like a flower turning toward distant sun. And Theron had felt it. Had felt the impossible pull of a connection that shouldn't exist. He was starting to suspect. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and texted Dimitri. Need extraction plan. Cover may be compromised. Stand by for emergency evacuation. His response came immediately. Understood. Plan B ready if needed. But Frost, if you abort now, you lose everything. The revenge, the payoff, all of it. Are you sure? Was I sure? I'd spent 10 years building this moment. 10 years becoming someone new. Someone strong. Someone who could stand in front of Theron Wolfsbane and make him pay for what he'd done. But I hadn't accounted for the bond fragments still living in my chest. Hadn't accounted for my wolf refusing to stay dead. Hadn't accounted for the way he looked at me with guilt and longing and desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, his mate had survived. I typed back standing down. Continuing mission. Will advise if status changes. I deleted the message thread, smashed my laptop's hard drive with the heel of my boot, and pulled out the backup files. I kept on an encrypted drive hidden in my weapons case. Then I sat in the darkness and tried to bury my wolf deeper. Tried to silence the bond fragments that sang with recognition. Tried to remember that Theron Wolfsbane was my enemy, not my mate. But the line between those two truths was getting harder to see, and I didn't know how much longer I could walk it. Chapter 5. The Unraveling. The next morning, I woke to find a note slipped under my door. Council meeting. 10 a.m. Your presence is required. His handwriting was sharp, precise, controlled, like the man himself. I burned the note in the bathroom sink and watched the ashes swirl down the drain. Evidence of nothing. Just like me. Except I wasn't nothing anymore. Last night, Theron had felt the bond fragments. Had felt the impossible connection between us that shouldn't exist. And now he'd be watching me even more closely, looking for answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. I needed to be perfect today. Flawless. Completely, utterly Kade Frost. I dressed in black tactical pants and a fitted jacket that concealed my weapons, pulled my platinum hair back severely, and checked my appearance in the mirror. Hard eyes stared back, hazel from the contacts, not the green they used to be. Sharp cheekbones, courtesy of weight loss, and then strategic muscle gain. The scar bisecting my left eyebrow from a knife fight in Morocco. Nothing about this face said, Kiera Ashford. I repeated it to myself like a mantra as I headed to the council chambers. The council was already assembled when I arrived, but Theron hadn't entered yet. 12 wolves watched me take my seat with varying degrees of hostility. Only Marcus looked something other than hostile. He looked calculating, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. The human arrives, Councilwoman Vera said, her voice dripping disdain. Tell me, Miss Frost, how many more attacks must we endure before you actually succeed at your job? As many as it takes to draw out your traitor. I replied evenly. Because someone in this compound is feeding intelligence to your enemies, and until we find them, the attacks will continue. Perhaps the traitor is sitting right here, suggested Councilman Price, his beady eyes fixed on me, a human mercenary with a conveniently mysterious past. How do we know you're not the one selling information? Because I'm not stupid enough to compromise my own protection detail. I leaned back, projecting boredom. If I wanted the Alpha King dead, I'd have let those mercenaries kill him. Instead, I've taken 2 bullets keeping him alive. So unless you think I'm playing some elaborate long game, maybe you are. Price interrupted. Maybe you're waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Maybe. Enough. Theron's voice cut through the room like a blade. He entered through the private door behind his seat, and every wolf in the room straightened instinctively. Alpha King. Their power, their authority, their burden. He looked like he hadn't slept. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and there was a tension in his jaw that spoke of barely leashed control. His gaze found mine immediately, held it for a beat too long, then moved on. We captured 3 attackers last night, he said, taking his seat. Marcus, what did the interrogations reveal? The beta stood, distributing folders around the table. All 3 confirmed they were hired through intermediaries. Payment came through cryptocurrency, instructions through encrypted channels. But they all mentioned the same thing. Their intel came from inside the wolf's mouth. A phrase, Theron said, or a code name. Either way, it confirms we have a traitor. Marcus's expression was grim. Someone with access to security protocols, building layouts, guard rotations. That narrows it down to everyone in this room, I finished. Plus senior staff, security chiefs, and probably a few others. Still a large pool. Vera's eyes flashed. You dare suggest that a council member? I dare suggest that betrayal doesn't care about rank. I met her gaze steadily. Money and power corrupt everyone equally. So yes, councilwoman, I'm suggesting that one of you might be the traitor. Impossible, Price sputtered. We've all served the Wolfsbane pack for decades. We have no reason to. Except for territory redistribution, I interrupted. I'd done my homework last night, despite the emotional chaos. 6 months ago, the Alpha King blocked a vote that would have consolidated power among 3 alphas on the European Council. Alphas who happen to have family connections to 3 people in this room. Dead silence. Theron's eyes narrowed. Explain. I stood, pulling up files on my tablet and projecting them onto the screen behind Theron's chair. Councilwoman Vera's sister is mated to Alpha Kristoff of the Baltic territories. Councilman Price's son serves as beta to Alpha Volkov of the Eastern Range. And Councilman Steele. I gestured to a silver-haired male who'd been silent until now. Your nephew is Alpha Constantin of the Carpathian Wolves. This proves nothing, Steele said, but his voice wavered. No, I agreed. But it establishes motive. The territory redistribution would have made your family members significantly more powerful. The Alpha King stood in the way of that, and now someone wants him dead. You overstep, human, Vera hissed, half rising from her seat. You have no authority to accuse. She has my authority. Theron's voice was soft, deadly. And I want answers. All 3 of you will submit to truth verification. Today. You can't be serious, Price said. Truth verification is the only way to clear your names. Theron's eyes glowed gold. Unless you have something to hide. The 3 council members exchanged glances. Trapped. If they refused, they looked guilty. If they submitted and failed, they were exposed. This is outrageous, Vera finally said. We are loyal members of this council. We don't deserve. My 3 previous bodyguards are dead, Theron said quietly. My compound has been breached twice in 4 days. Loyalty is no longer assumed. It's proven. So you'll submit to verification, or you'll be removed from this council pending investigation. More silence. Then, grudgingly, all 3 nodded. Good. Theron stood. Marcus, arrange it. I want results by tomorrow. He turned to the rest of the council. Meeting adjourned. Except you, Miss Frost. Stay. The council members filed out, shooting me looks ranging from murderous to fearful. Marcus lingered in the doorway. Alpha, are you sure you want to be alone with? Go, Marcus. The beta left, closing the door behind him. And then it was just us. Alone in the council chamber, with too much unsaid hanging in the air. Theron moved to the windows, his back to me. That was risky. Accusing 3 council members without absolute proof. One needed to force their hand. If one of them is the traitor, they'll make a mistake now. Panic makes people sloppy. And if none of them are the traitor, then we look elsewhere. But my money's on Vera. She had the strongest reaction. He turned, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. You're very good at this. At reading people, manipulating situations, applying pressure. He moved closer. It's almost like you have personal experience with betrayal. My heart kicked into overdrive, but I kept my expression neutral. Everyone has experience with betrayal, Alpha King. It's part of being alive. Theron, he corrected softly. When we're alone, call me Theron. That's inappropriate. I work for you. You saved my life multiple times. I think we're past inappropriate. Another step closer. And last night, when you were in pain when I touched you, I felt something. Something impossible? You felt nothing? I said, but my voice wavered. Betrayed me. Don't lie to me. He was close enough now that I could see the flecks of amber in his gold eyes, count the scars on his knuckles. I've spent 10 years drowning in guilt, punishing myself for choices I can't undo. I know what bonds feel like. Broken bonds, severed connections, phantom pains from something that should be dead. And last night, I felt all of that when I touched you. You're projecting. Seeing what you want to see because you're desperate to find your dead mate. The words came out harsher than I intended. I'm not her. I'm not anyone's mate. I'm just a mercenary doing a job. Then why did you react? His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not touching. Why did you gasp like you were in agony? Why did something in my chest respond to your pain? Because your alpha instincts are confused. I stepped back, putting distance between us. You're used to protecting pack members, and I'm in your territory, under your protection. Your wolf is responding to that. Nothing more. You're lying. His jaw clenched. I don't know why, but you're lying. And I will figure out what you're hiding, Kade Frost. I will. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression went from intense to carved granite. What is it? I asked. Another package. He showed me the message from Marcus. Delivered to the front gate an hour ago. They're bringing it to my study. We walked in tense silence through the compound. Wolves stepped aside as Theron passed, lowering their eyes in automatic submission. But I felt their gazes follow me. The human who'd accused their council members, who stood too close to their alpha, who didn't belong. Good. Let them be uncomfortable. Discomfort bred mistakes. Marcus waited in Theron's study with a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. No return address. No markings. It's been scanned, Marcus said. No explosives, no biological threats. But there's definitely something inside. Theron took the box, weighing it in his hands. Then he carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a silver locket on a delicate chain. My silver locket. The one his mother had given me the night he'd introduced us, saying it had been passed down through 5 generations of Wolfsbane Lunas. The one I'd been wearing when they'd thrown me out to die. The one I'd kept all these years, hidden in a safe deposit box in Berlin, because I couldn't bring myself to destroy it, even though it represented everything I'd lost. Theron's hands shook as he lifted the locket. He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were 2 photos. On the left, a picture of him at 22, laughing, young, not yet weighed down by guilt. On the right, a picture of me, the old me, with long dark hair and green eyes, and a smile that believed in forever. The girl who died in the woods. This was hers. Theron whispered. My mother gave this to Kiera the night I introduced them. She was wearing it when... His voice broke. When I rejected her. when they threw her out. He looked up at me, and there were tears tracking down his face. Tears. Someone has Kiera's locket, he said. Someone who knew about us, about what happened. Someone who? He stopped, his eyes widening. Someone who wants me to know she's alive, that she survived. Or someone who wants to torture you with false hope. I managed. My voice sounded distant, hollow. Someone who found the locket on her body and is using it to destabilize you. No. He clutched the locket like a lifeline. No, if she'd died, the locket would have been returned to my mother per pack law. Someone kept it. Someone who had a reason to keep it. He was spiraling, connecting dots that would lead him straight to the truth. I needed to derail this. Needed to. There's something else in the box, Marcus said quietly. Theron appended the box. A small card fell out, handwritten in elegant script. She's closer than you think. Lue friend, the temperature in the room dropped. Theron looked at me. Really looked at me with eyes that suddenly saw too much. How long have you been watching me? He asked softly. What? The photo from Prague. Now this locket. Someone has been watching me, studying me, learning everything about my greatest regret. His voice was too calm. Dangerously calm. And then a mysterious mercenary appears, one with no past. No verifiable history before 12 years ago. One who fights like she's been trained by wolves. One who responds to my touch in ways humans shouldn't respond. Theron. One who called me by my first name without hesitation. Who knows things about pack politics she shouldn't know. Who looks at me sometimes like she wants to destroy me. He was in front of me now, backing me against the wall. Not threatening. Searching. One whose eyes. His hand moved to my face, and this time I couldn't pull away. His fingers touched my cheekbone, slid to the edge of my jaw. Are the wrong color, but the right shape. The right way of looking at the world like it's something to survive rather than live in. You're seeing ghosts, I whispered. Am I? His thumb brushed my lower lip. Or am I finally seeing what's been in front of me all along? The bond fragments screamed. My wolf howled. And I felt the exact moment something clicked into place behind his eyes. Kiera. He breathed my name like a prayer, like a curse, like hope and devastation wrapped in 3 syllables. My Kiera. You're alive. You're here. I could have denied it. Should have denied it. Should have doubled down on the lie and completed my revenge plan according to script. But I was so tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of pretending. Tired of carrying 10 years of hate and broken bond fragments and a dormant wolf who wouldn't stay buried. Yes, I said. Simply. Finally, I'm alive. Surprise. His face went through a dozen emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, joy, anguish, guilt, relief, terror. Then he dropped to his knees in front of me. The Alpha King knelt at my feet, his hands shaking. His head bowed. I'm sorry, he choked out. Kiera, I'm so sorry. I was weak, I was a coward. I let them. I should have fought for you, should have chosen you over everything. I'm sorry. I'm sorry doesn't fix anything. My voice was ice. Sorry doesn't undo 10 years of surviving without my wolf. Sorry doesn't heal the bond you shattered. I know. Tears dripped onto the floor. I know nothing I say will fix what I did. But please, please let me try. Let me. Let you what? Grovel? Beg? Make yourself feel better by easing your guilt. I laughed, bitter and broken. You don't get absolution, Theron. You get to live with what you did. Just like I've had to live with it. Then kill me? He looked up, and the naked honesty in his face nearly broke me. If that's what you need, if my death brings you peace, take it. Take my life. I give it to you freely. I don't want your life. I crouched down so we were eye to eye. I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to know what it's like to be thrown away, to be told you're not good enough, not worthy enough to exist in someone's world. I want you to experience every single ounce of pain and humiliation and despair that I carried for 10 years. I have, he whispered. Every day. Every night. It's why I never took another mate. Why I never produced an heir. Because being with anyone else felt like a betrayal of what we were. What I destroyed. That's not the same, I hissed. You chose to be alone. It was self-imposed penance. I didn't choose anything. You chose for me. You decided I wasn't worth fighting for, and then you let me crawl away to die. I thought you did die. His voice cracked. I thought the rejection killed you, and I've been living with that guilt for a decade. Knowing that my weakness, my cowardice, ended your life. I deserve your hate. I deserve your revenge. But Kiera, his hand reached for mine, but stopped just short of touching. You survived. You're alive. That's a miracle I don't deserve, but I'm grateful for it anyway. Even if you destroy me, even if you spend the rest of your life hating me, at least you're alive. I stared at him, at the male who'd ruined me, who I'd spent 10 years planning to destroy, and felt the foundations of my carefully constructed revenge plot beginning to crack. Because he wasn't groveling to manipulate me. Wasn't performing guilt to earn forgiveness. He genuinely believed he deserved everything I wanted to do to him. And he'd let me do it. What was revenge worth if the target welcomed it? Get up, I said roughly. You look pathetic. He stood slowly, and I saw Marcus in the doorway, his expression shocked. How much had he heard? Everyone out, I said. The Alpha and I need to talk. Alone. Marcus looked to Theron, who nodded. The Beta left, closing the door behind him. And then it was just us. The broken bond. The impossible survival. 10 years of pain and secrets and carefully maintained lies, all exposed in a single moment. How? Theron asked finally. How did you survive? Every medical text says rejection is fatal. I don't know. It was the truth. My wolf went dormant. Not dead, I realize now, but so deeply asleep that I became effectively human. The bond broke. But I guess not completely. Just shattered into fragments. I can feel them. His hand moved to his chest. Now that I know, I can feel them. These jagged pieces of what we were. Still trying to connect. Don't. I stepped back. Don't try to romanticize this. The bond is broken. I'm human now. Whatever we were, we can't be that again. Why not? There was desperate hope in his voice. You're alive. I'm alive. The bond exists, even damaged. We could what? Pick up where we left off. Pretend the last 10 years didn't happen. I'm not your mate anymore, Theron. I'm not anyone's mate. I'm a mercenary who came here to destroy you. And the only reason you're not already ruined is because I wanted to drag it out. Wanted you to suffer. He absorbed that like a physical blow. You were going to destroy me. I still might. I pulled out my phone, showed him the files I'd compiled. Evidence of financial irregularities I'd fabricated. Fabricated emails suggesting treason. Plans to leak information to his enemies at precisely the right moment to cause maximum damage. I've been building this for weeks. One press of a button and your reputation, your alliances, your kingdom. It all comes crashing down. Then do it. He didn't look at the phone, just kept his eyes on mine. If it brings you peace, do it. Destroy me. I won't fight you. Stop saying that. The rage I'd been holding back for 10 years finally boiled over. Stop being so fucking willing to be destroyed. Fight back. Defend yourself. Give me a reason to hate you properly instead of this. This pathetic acceptance? I can't. His voice broke. I can't fight you, Kiera. You're the only thing in this world I have no defense against. You're my mate. My fated mate. Even broken, even shattered, the bond is still the most powerful force in my existence. And if you need me destroyed to heal, then destroy me. I love you enough to let you. I hit him. My fist connected with his jaw, snapping his head to the side. He didn't block, didn't dodge. Just took it. So I hit him again. And again. Poured 10 years of rage and pain and betrayal into my fists. And he just stood there and let me. Until I was sobbing, my knuckles bleeding, my shoulder wound torn open and bleeding through my shirt. I hate you, I gasped. I hate you so much. I know. He caught my wrist gently, carefully. I know. And you have every right to. You ruined me. You destroyed everything I was. I know. I survived without a wolf, without a pack, without anything but rage and the need for revenge. I know. His thumbs brushed over my bleeding knuckles. And you're magnificent. You're stronger than any wolf I've ever known. You survived the unsurvivable. You built a life from ashes. You became something extraordinary. Don't. Tears tracked down my face. Don't try to make this okay. Nothing makes this okay. You're right, nothing does. He pulled me closer, and I was too exhausted to fight. But Kiera, I will spend the rest of my life trying anyway. I'll grovel. I'll beg. I'll give you everything I have, everything I am. And if at the end of it you still want me destroyed, then I'll hand you the knife myself. I looked up at him, at the male who'd broken me, and was now offering to let me break him in return. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't know if I wanted revenge anymore, or if I wanted something far more dangerous. Forgiveness. Chapter 6, Recognition and Ruin. The next 72 hours were a study in controlled chaos. Theron told no one about my real identity. Not yet? Your choice, he'd said. When you're ready? If you're ever ready. But Marcus knew something had shifted. The beta watched us with calculating eyes during briefings, during meals, during the tense council sessions where we awaited truth verification results. He didn't ask questions, but his suspicion was palpable. The 3 accused council members submitted to verification. A brutal magical process involving ancient pack rituals and a truth seeker from the European Council. I watched through one, Wayglass as Councilwoman Vera. Councilman Price and Councilman Steele each sat in a circle of salt and silver, while a wizened old wolf asked pointed questions. All 3 passed. Impossible, I muttered as the truth seeker declared them clean. Theron stood beside me, close enough that I could feel his heat, but careful not to touch. We'd maintained that distance since the revelation. Near enough to talk, far enough to pretend the bond fragments weren't screaming for contact. Not impossible, he said. Just unexpected. Which means our traitor is someone else. Someone we haven't considered. Or someone skilled enough to fool truth verification. I studied Vera through the glass. Some wolves can be trained to believe their own lies. Make deception read as truth. That level of training takes years. Decades. His jaw tightened. We're missing something. We were. I could feel it. That familiar itch between my shoulder blades that meant danger was close but not yet visible. The attacks had stopped after I'd destroyed my laptop. 3 days of quiet. No breaches. No assassination attempts. No mysterious packages. It felt like the calm before a hurricane. That night, I couldn't sleep. I'd been having the dreams again, memories of the rejection, twisted into nightmares where I died in those woods over and over, where my wolf shredded me from the inside, trying to reach her mate, where I woke gasping and clawing at my chest, certain I was dying all over again. At 2 a.m., I gave up and went to the compound's training room. If I couldn't sleep, I'd exhaust myself properly. The training room was empty. All heavy bags and weight equipment and padded mats that smelled like sweat and wolf. I wrapped my hands, chose the heaviest bag, and started hitting. Left jab, right cross, hook, uppercut. The rhythm was meditative. Each impact drove back the nightmares, the memories, The phantom sensation of bond fragments trying to knit themselves back together. I'd been at it for maybe 20 minutes when I felt him. Theron stood in the doorway, shirtless, wearing only training pants. His tattoos seemed to move in the dim light. Tribal patterns that marked him as Alpha King, that traced the lines of muscle and scar tissue across his chest and shoulders. He was devastating. He'd always been devastating. I hated that it still affected me. Couldn't sleep, he asked. Nightmares. I hit the bag harder. You. Same. He moved to a different bag, started his own routine. For several minutes, we worked in silence, just the sound of fists on leather and controlled breathing. Then, what are your nightmares about? I hit the bag hard enough to send it swinging. Dying. What are yours about? You dying. His voice was rough. Every night for 10 years, I see you in those woods. I see you broken and bleeding and calling my name, and I can't reach you. Can't save you. Can't fix what I did? Good, I said, but there was no venom in it. Just exhaustion. You should dream about it. You should never forget. I won't. He caught his bag, held it still. Kiera, can we talk? Really talk. We are talking. No, we're... He gestured between us. We're circling. Dancing around everything that matters. I need to understand. How did you survive? Not just physically. How did you survive emotionally? Mentally? How did you not go insane? I stopped hitting. Breathing hard. Who says I didn't? You're not insane. He searched for words. You're controlled, contained, like you took all that pain and rage and forged it into armor. That's exactly what I did. I unwrapped my hands. I spent 3 days in those woods dying. Or thinking I was dying. The bond breaking felt like being torn apart at a molecular level. My wolf went silent, and it was like losing half my soul. I should have died. By every measure, I should have just stopped existing. But you didn't. No. Because on the 3rd day, I got angry. I met his eyes. Really, truly angry. Not sad, not broken, furious. You didn't get to kill me. You didn't get to take my life and walk away clean. So I dragged myself up, and I walked until I found a human town, and I told them I'd been attacked by animals. They believed me because I was covered in blood and barely conscious. Jesus, Kiera. I spent 2 months in a human hospital. They couldn't explain my injuries. Why I'd survived, why my body was healing wrong. Why I kept talking about missing my wolf. I pulled off my jacket, showed him the silvered scars that wound up my arms. These appeared when my wolf went dormant. Like my body was marking the death of half my soul. The doctors thought they were self-harm scars. I let them believe it. His hand reached out instinctively, then stopped. Can I? May I see them? I should have said no. Should have kept that boundary. But some broken part of me wanted him to see. Wanted him to understand the physical evidence of what he'd done. I held out my arm. He took it with infinite gentleness, his fingers tracing the silvered lines that spiraled from wrist to elbow. His touch was feather-light, reverent, and the bond fragments in my chest ached. I did this, he whispered. I marked you with my cowardice. Yes. I don't know how to live with that. You learn. I pulled my arm back. You wake up every day and you survive it. Just like I did. He looked at me with such raw devastation that I had to look away. After the hospital, I continued, needing to finish the story now that I'd started. I had nothing. No identity, no pack, no wolf. I was human in every way that mattered. So I built a new identity. Stole papers from a dead mercenary, created a background, learned to fight like I'd never fought before. Became someone who couldn't be thrown away because I was too valuable, too dangerous, too necessary. Kade Frost. Kade Frost, I confirmed. A ghost built on the bones of Kiera Ashford. Someone who didn't believe in fate or bonds or happily ever after. Someone who survived on contracts and cold cash, and the knowledge that the only person you can rely on is yourself. And you came here for revenge. I came here to destroy you the way you destroyed me. I leaned against the heavy bag. I was going to dismantle your kingdom piece by piece. Ruin your alliances, expose your weaknesses, turn your pack against you. And then, when you'd lost everything, I was going to tell you who I really was. I wanted you to know that the mate you thought you killed had survived long enough to be your destruction. You should still do it, he said quietly. If it brings you closure. If it heals something in you, do it. I won't stop you. Stop offering yourself up for slaughter. The anger was back, hot and sharp. Stop being so fucking willing to be destroyed. It makes revenge meaningless. Then what do you want from me? His own anger finally showed, leaking through the controlled calm. You want me to fight you, to rage against it, to try to justify what I did. I can't. There is no justification. There's no defense. I was weak and afraid, and I chose politics over my mate. I chose my kingdom over your life. That's unforgivable. So if you can't have revenge because I won't fight you, what do you want, Kiera? Tell me what you need, and I'll give it to you. I don't know. The admission tore out of me. I don't know what I want anymore. I've spent 10 years building toward revenge, and now that I'm here, now that you know who I am, I don't know if revenge will fix anything. I don't know if destroying you will heal the broken places inside me. Then let's figure it out. He moved closer, and I didn't back away. Together. Let's try to fix what I broke. The bond can't be fixed. I'm human now. My wolf is dormant, and even if she could wake up. She is waking up. His hand moved to my chest, just over my heart. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat. I can feel her in there. Faint, but present. The bond fragments are still alive, Kiera. Damaged, but not dead. Which means there's hope. Hope? I laughed bitterly. Hope for what? That we go back to being mates? That I forgive you and we play happy family. That's not how this works. You can't unmake 10 years of trauma with pretty words and guilt. I know that. His hand finally made contact, palm flat against my chest, and the bond fragments sang. My dormant wolf stirred, pushing toward the surface for the first time in a decade. But maybe we could start with honesty. With acknowledging what we were, what we lost, and what might still be possible. Nothing is possible, I whispered, even as my body betrayed me by leaning into his touch. Everything is possible. His other hand came up to cup my face. You survived the unsurvivable. You became the first and only feral human. You built a life from nothing. If anyone can find a way to heal a broken bond, it's you. I don't want to heal it. But the lie was weak, unconvincing. Liar. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Your wolf is reaching for me right now. I can feel her. He was right. I could feel her too, my wolf dormant for so long, stirring in the depths of my consciousness. Not fully awake, not functional, but present. Aware. Desperate for her mate. This doesn't change anything, I said, but I didn't pull away. It changes everything. He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching mine. Kiera, I know I don't deserve it. I know I haven't earned it. But please, give me a chance. Let me try to fix this. Let me. The alarms shrieked through the compound. We broke apart, both shifting instantly into combat mode. Theron's eyes flashed gold, his body already responding to the threat. That's the perimeter breach alarm, he said. Multiple entry points. They're not coming in small teams anymore. I was already moving toward the weapons locker. This is a full assault. We ran through corridors filling with confused, frightened wolves. Pack members scrambled to defensive positions. Children were being herded towards safe rooms. Warriors shifted partially. ready for combat. Marcus met us in the main hall, his expression grim. 20 hostiles. Maybe more. Human mercenaries, all heavily armed. They're hitting us from 4 directions simultaneously. Coordinated assault, I said. Professional military tactics. This isn't just an assassination attempt anymore. This is a siege. They want to take the compound, Theron said, his voice hard. They want to break us completely. An explosion rocked the west wing. Then another from the south. Gunfire erupted in staccato bursts, and through the chaos, I felt it. That itch between my shoulder blades. That sense of something fundamentally wrong. This is a diversion, I breathed. The attacks, the noise, the chaos, it's all a diversion. The real threat is. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in immediately, but in that moment of darkness, I felt it. The dormant place in my chest suddenly went ice cold. My wolf wasn't just stirring anymore. She was screaming. Theron? I said urgently. We need 2. He collapsed, just dropped like his strings had been cut. His body convulsing. His eyes rolled back, showing white. Foam flecked his lips. T.H. I dropped beside him, my hands on his chest. His heart was racing, his body burning with fever that had appeared in seconds. Poison. Marcus breathed, dropping to his knees beside his alpha. Someone poisoned him. But when? How? I rifled through my memory, everything he'd eaten, drunk, touched in the last few hours. And I remembered. The training room. He'd been drinking from a water bottle when I arrived. Had already finished half of it. The water, I said. Someone poisoned his water in the training room. Fast acting. Designed to look like a seizure. They knew he'd be alone, vulnerable. How did they know he'd be in the training room tonight? Marcus demanded. Because someone had been watching. Studying his patterns. Knowing he couldn't sleep, that he trained when the nightmares got too bad. Someone close enough to have access. Close enough to know his habits. I looked up at Marcus, really looked at him, and saw something I'd missed before. The beta wasn't surprised. He was waiting. It was you? I said softly. You're the traitor. His expression didn't change. Slever human. Took you long enough. Then he shifted. Full transformation, bones cracking and reforming, and lunged. I barely rolled out of the way, his claws scoring down my back instead of ripping out my spine. Pain exploded through me, but I kept moving, kept thinking. Marcus in full wolf form was 300 pounds of muscle and fang. I was human, injured, and fighting to protect a male who was dying on the floor beside us. Uneven odds. Good. I'd survived worse. I pulled the silver knife from my thigh holster, the one I'd carried for 10 years, the one I'd planned to use to destroy Theron. Instead, I used it to cut deep into Marcus's shoulder as he came at me again. He yelped, silver burning through his system. But he didn't stop, just recalculated and came at me from a different angle. We danced through the hallway, me barely staying ahead of his attacks, him taking shallow cuts that slowed but didn't stop him. Around us, the battle raged. Wolves fighting mercenaries. The compound tearing itself apart. But all I could think about was Theron on the floor, convulsing, dying from poison meant to look like natural causes. Why? I gasped as I ducked another swipe of claws. Why betray him? Because he's weak. Marcus's voice was guttural, distorted by the wolf form. He blocked the territory redistribution, protected the small packs, made us look soft to the council. An alpha king who won't consolidate power isn't an alpha king worth following. So you'd kill him. You're alpha. I'd replace him with someone stronger, someone who understands that mercy is weakness. His eyes glowed in the emergency lighting. And I'd be well compensated for my trouble. He lunged again, and this time I wasn't fast enough. His jaws closed around my arm, the same arm Theron had touched so gently an hour ago, tracing my scars with reverence. Marcus bit down, fangs sinking deep, and I screamed. But I didn't let go of the knife. I drove it up and into his throat, silver blade piercing through fur and flesh and cartilage. Marcus gurgled, his grip loosening. I pulled the knife free and struck again, this time aiming for the heart. He collapsed, shifting back to human form as he died. His eyes stared at nothing, blood pooling beneath him. I didn't waste time on guilt. Just dragged myself to Theron, my mangled arm hanging useless, my back screaming from the claw marks. Theron, I gasped, checking his pulse. Thready, weak. He was dying. No. You don't get to die now. Not after everything. Not after. The bond fragments in my chest suddenly flared to life. Not broken. Not dormant. Active. My wolf surged to the surface with enough force to drive me to my knees. She'd been sleeping for 10 years, buried under trauma and rejection. But now, with her mate dying, she erupted, and I felt the impossible happen. The bond fragments began to knit themselves together. Not fully, not completely, but enough that I could feel Theron through the connection. Could feel his life slipping away, his wolf trying desperately to purge the poison and failing. No, I said through gritted teeth. You don't get to leave me. Not now. Not after making me feel again. I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know if it was even possible. But I reached through the fragmentary bond, reached through the broken, jagged connection, and I pulled. I pulled his pain into me. Pulled the poison through the bond, letting it leach into my system instead of his. My body didn't have a wolf to fight it, didn't have supernatural healing. But I did it anyway, because the alternative was watching my mate die. And somewhere in the last 72 hours, between the revelation and the conversations and the careful distance we'd maintained, he'd become my mate again. Not the way we'd been. Not innocent or uncomplicated or easy, but mine nonetheless. The poison hit my system like liquid fire. I convulsed, my body trying to reject it, my human physiology completely unprepared for wolf-specific toxins. I could feel it shutting down my organs one by one, could feel death creeping closer. But Theron's heartbeat was getting stronger. His breathing was evening out. His wolf was recovering. Worth it. Distantly, I heard shouting, felt hands on me, pulling me away from Theron. Someone was screaming my name, my real name. And I realized it was Theron, conscious now, his eyes wide with horror as he realized what I'd done. No, he was saying. No, Kiera. No. Why would you? Because. I gasped, blood bubbling on my lips. Because you're mine. Even broken. Even damaged. Mine. Then, I won't let you die from me. His hands were on my face, my chest, trying to assess the damage. I won't. He stopped. His eyes went wide. Your wolf, he breathed. Kiera, your wolf is. I felt her then. Really felt her. Not dormant. Not distant. Present. My wolf was awake, and she was furious. The shift happened without conscious thought. My body remembered, even though it had been 10 years. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur erupted across my skin. My senses exploded outward. Smell. Hearing. Sight, all amplifying beyond human capability. And the poison that had been killing me suddenly met a supernatural immune system it hadn't been designed to combat. My wolf purged it violently, forcing it out through every pore. I convulsed again, but this time it was my body healing itself. Knitting back together. Fighting back. When the transformation completed, I lay on the floor in wolf form for the first time in a decade. And my mate, was staring at me with tears streaming down his face. You're whole, he whispered. Your wolf came back. The bond. It healed enough to bring her back. I shifted back to human, gasping. My arm was healed. My back was healed. The poison was gone. And the bond fragments in my chest were no longer fragments. They were a bond. Damaged, scarred, imperfect, but real. How? I asked. True mate bonds can't be fully broken, he said, pulling me into his arms. They can be damaged, suppressed, driven dormant, but not destroyed. And when one mate is in mortal danger, when the other is willing to sacrifice everything. His voice cracked. The bond remembers. It heals. It comes back. Around us, the battle was ending. The mercenaries were being routed by pack warriors. The siege was failing. And in the center of it all, two broken souls were putting themselves back together. I still hate you, I said against his chest. I know. I still want revenge. I know. But I don't want you dead. I know. He pulled back, cupping my face in his hands. Kiera. I know this doesn't fix everything. I know we have years of damage to work through. But please, give us a chance. Give us a chance. Not because of the bond. Not because of fate. But because we both survived the unsurvivable. And maybe that means we deserve a second chance. I looked at him. At the male who destroyed me, and then offered to let me destroy him in return. At the Alpha King who'd spent 10 years drowning in guilt. At my mate, flawed and broken and desperate for redemption. And I made a choice. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But a choice to try. One chance, I said. One? And if you fuck it up, you can kill me yourself. He finished. I know. I accept those terms. Good. I pulled away, standing on shaky legs. Now let's finish this fight. We have a compound to secure. He stood beside me, and together we walked into the chaos. Not as we'd been, but as something new. Something forged in pain and survival and impossible healing. Something that might, against all odds, have a future. Chapter 7. Blood and Sacrifice. The battle lasted another 30 minutes. By the time it ended, 12 mercenaries were dead, 8 were captured, and the compound was a war zone. Broken windows, scorched walls, blood on marble floors. Pack members huddled in safe rooms, traumatized. Warriors stood guard over prisoners, their eyes hard with betrayal. Their beta had tried to kill their Alpha King. The revelation rippled through the pack like poison. Theron stood in the main hall, blood, spattered and exhausted, issuing orders with the kind of controlled authority that came from years of leadership. But I could feel the bond now, really feel it, and beneath that control was a maelstrom of guilt and rage and bone, deep wariness. He'd trusted Marcus, had considered him a brother, and Marcus had been selling him out for months. Secure the prisoners in the lower cells. Theron commanded. Full restraints, silver if necessary. I want interrogations to begin at first light. Yes. Alpha. The warriors dispersed, dragging mercenaries away. Dr. Venn appeared with a medical team, triaging the wounded. She stopped when she saw me, her eyes going wide. MNs. Frost. Your injuries from earlier. She gestured to my arm, which should have been mangled from Marcus's bite. How are you? I heal fast, I said shortly. Check the others. They need you more. She hesitated, clearly wanting to examine me further, then nodded and moved on. Theron approached, his expression carefully neutral. But through the bond, I felt his desperate need to touch me, to confirm I was real and whole and alive. We need to talk, he said quietly. Privately, your study. Compromised. The attack. They destroyed most of the East Wing. His jaw tightened. My private quarters. It's the most secure location left. I followed him through the damaged compound, stepping over debris and bloodstains. Pack members watched us pass, their alpha and the mysterious human who'd killed their traitorous beta. I felt their confusion, their suspicion, their fear. They didn't know who I really was. Didn't know their Alpha King supposedly dead mate had returned. And I wasn't sure I was ready for them to know. Theron's quarters were opulent, all dark wood and leather, with floor to ceiling bookshelves and a massive bed that dominated one corner. It smelled like hempine and smoke, and something uniquely alpha. My wolf stirred, recognizing home. I told her to shut up. Your arm, Theron said as soon as the door closed. Marcus bit you. I saw the wound. It was deep, down to bone. And now there's nothing. Not even a scar. My wolf healed it when she woke up. I flexed my hand, testing the joints. Everything worked perfectly. Accelerated healing. One of the perks of being supernatural again. Your wolf. He moved closer, his eyes searching my face. Kiera, do you understand what this means? Your wolf didn't just wake up. She came back. After 10 years of dormancy, after being driven so deep that you were effectively human, she came back. Because you were dying. Because the bond. I stopped, struggling with the words. Because some part of me couldn't let you die. Even after everything. Even though I came here to destroy you. The bond is stronger than we thought. His hand lifted toward my face, then dropped. Still asking permission. Still careful. It survived the rejection. Survived a decade of separation. Survived my cowardice and your transformation into someone new. That's unheard of, Kiera. That's impossible. So am I. I moved to the window, putting distance between us. I'm the impossible feral human who survived rejection. Maybe having an impossible bond is just part of the package. Can you feel it? He asked. The bond. Can you feel what I'm feeling? I closed my eyes, reaching inward. And yes, there it was. The connection, no longer fragments but a thread. Damaged, scarred, but present. Through it, I could feel his emotions: guilt, hope, fear, desperate longing. Bone, deep exhaustion. And love. God, the love was overwhelming. 10 years of it compressed and concentrated, pouring through the bond like a tidal wave. Yes, I whispered. I can feel it. Then you know. His voice cracked. You know I've never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Not even when I thought you were dead. Especially not then. Love isn't enough. I opened my eyes, met his gaze. You loved me when you rejected me. Love didn't stop you from throwing me away. You're right. He didn't flinch from the accusation. Love wasn't enough. I was too weak, too afraid of losing my position, too convinced that the council's approval mattered more than my mate. I was wrong. And I've spent every day since paying for that mistake. Good. The word was harsh. You should pay. You should suffer. You should. I should die for what I did. He finished quietly. I know. And if that's what you need, if my death is the only way you can heal, then I'll give it to you. Right now, no hesitation. He pulled a silver blade from his desk drawer and held it out to me. Handle first. The ultimate submission. 1 cut, he said. Silver through the heart. I won't fight. Won't resist. The bond will make it agonizing for both of us. But if it brings you peace... Stop it. I knocked the blade from his hand. It clattered across the floor. Stop offering to die! Stop trying to make yourself the martyr. You don't get to choose the easy way out. Then what do you want from me? He finally showed real anger, his eyes flashing gold. I've groveled. I've apologized. I've offered you my life, my crown, everything I have. What more can I possibly give you? Time. The word tore out of me. I want time to hate you properly. Time to process 10 years of trauma. Time to figure out if the bond coming back means I have to forgive you, or if I can still despise you while being metaphysically tied to you forever. You can do both, he said, softer now. You can hate me and be bonded to me. They're not mutually exclusive. The bond doesn't erase what I did, doesn't fix the damage. It just means we're connected whether we like it or not. I don't like it. But even as I said it, I felt the lie. Some part of me, the part that had survived on rage and revenge fantasies for a decade, was relieved. Relieved that the bond existed, that I wasn't truly alone anymore, that my wolf had come home. You don't have to like it. He moved closer, and this time I didn't retreat. You just have to accept it. And maybe we can build something new from the ruins of what we were. What if I don't want to build anything? I challenged. What if I want to take my wolf and my healed body and walk away? The bond will pull, but I've survived worse pain. I could leave. Right now. Disappear back into Kade Frost's life and never see you again. You could, he agreed. I wouldn't stop you. But Kiera, his hand finally made contact, cupping my cheek. And through the bond, I felt the depth of his desperation. Please don't. Please stay, not for the bond. Not because of fate. But because I will spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth a second chance. I should have pulled away. Should have maintained my anger, my distance, my carefully constructed walls. But I was so tired of hating, tired of armor, tired of being Kade Frost, the ghost built on bones and rage. One condition, I said. Anything. You tell the pack who I really am, no more hiding. No more pretending I'm just a hired mercenary. If I stay, if we try this, it's as your mate. Your Luna. Not your dirty secret. His eyes widened. Kiera, are you sure? The pack. They'll have questions. They'll want to know how you survived, where you've been. Let them ask. I'm done hiding. I leaned into his touch, feeling the bond sing between us. I've spent 10 years being someone else. If I'm going to try this, try us, I need to do it as myself, as Kiera Ashford, the rejected mate who refused to die. Kiera Wolfsbane, he corrected softly. If you'll take my name, if you'll accept the position of Luna Queen that should have been yours 10 years ago. I haven't forgiven you, I warned. I know. I still want revenge sometimes. I know. And I reserve the right to make your life difficult. I'm counting on it, he smiled. Small and genuine and achingly hopeful. A Luna should keep her alpha honest, should challenge him, should make him work for every moment of peace. Then you're going to have a very exhausting life. But I was smiling too, and it felt strange. Foreign. Like muscles I'd forgotten how to use. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to retreat. When I didn't, his lips brushed mine. The bond exploded. 10 years of separation, of longing, of broken fragments trying to reconnect. It all surged through us at once. The kiss deepened, turned desperate, his hands in my hair and mine fisted in his shirt. We kissed like we were dying, like we were being reborn, like the world was ending and beginning simultaneously. My wolf howled with joy. His wolf answered. And the bond knitted itself tighter, stronger, more real with every second. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I could feel him through the bond so clearly it was almost overwhelming. His love, his guilt, his desperate hope that we, might actually work. I still hate you sometimes, I whispered against his lips. I still hate myself, he whispered back. So we're even. I laughed, actually laughed, and it felt like light breaking through 10 years of darkness. Then the emergency alarms shrieked again. We broke apart, both shifting instantly into combat mode. What now? I demanded. Theron pulled up security feeds on his phone. His expression went deadly. The European Council. 3 alphas just arrived at our gates with armed escorts. They're demanding an audience. The ones who wanted the territory redistribution. Yes, his jaw clenched. They're here to finish what the assassination attempt started. They're here to take the kingdom. Can they do that? Legally? If they can prove I'm unfit to lead. If they can demonstrate weakness, instability, compromised judgment. He looked at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. Marcus's betrayal gives them ammunition. The attacks, the breaches, the deaths, it all makes me look weak, incapable of protecting my own pack. So we prove them wrong. I was already moving toward the weapons cache in his closet. We show them that you're not weak, that your pack is stronger than ever. Kiera, these are Council Alphas. They're some of the most powerful wolves in Europe. If they decide to challenge me, then you fight, and you win. Because you're the Alpha King, and I'm your Luna. And we don't back down from bullies. I pulled out a tactical vest, started strapping on weapons. Get dressed. Formal armor. We're going to remind them exactly who they're dealing with. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then a slow, feral smile spread across his face. You're magnificent, he said. I'm angry. There's a difference. But I smiled back. Now move. We have alphas to intimidate. 20 minutes later, we stood in the main hall to receive the European Council representatives. Theron wore full ceremonial armor, black leather and silver plates, with the Wolfsbane insignia emblazoned across his chest. He looked every inch the Alpha King powerful, dangerous, unbreakable. I stood at his right hand in matching black, armed to the teeth, my wolf just beneath the surface making my eyes flash gold. The pack had assembled behind us. Warriors in formation, council members, minus the 3 who'd been cleared, standing witness. And through it all, the bond thrummed between us. Theron and I, connected, synchronized, presenting a united front. The Council Alphas entered with an entourage of 20 wolves. 3 males, each radiating power and authority. Alpha Kristoff, Vera's brother-in-law, tall and blonde with ice blue eyes. Alpha Volkov, Price's son's Alpha, built like a tank with scarred hands and a cruel mouth. Alpha Konstantin, Steele's nephew, younger than the others but no less dangerous. They stopped in the center of the hall, their gazes raking over the damage. The assembled pack, Theron's cold expression. Then Kristoff's eyes landed on me, and he frowned. Alpha King, he said, his accent thick. We heard about the attacks, the betrayal of your beta. We've come to offer assistance. Assistance. Theron's voice was silk over steel. Or opportunity. Volkov smiled, showing too many teeth. Semantics. Your pack is compromised. Your security is clearly inadequate. Perhaps it's time to consider restructuring. You mean dissolving the northern territories and redistributing the land among yourselves. Theron didn't phrase it as a question. The same redistribution I blocked 6 months ago. Times change, Konstantin said smoothly. Leadership that cannot protect its own pack is leadership that should be replaced. For the good of all wolves. Of course. Theron's hand found mine, our fingers interlacing. And who would you suggest replace me? A council, Kristoff said. Shared governance. No single point of failure. No single alpha to challenge your authority, you mean. I spoke for the first time, and all 3 council alphas focused on me. You want the northern territories fractured and weak, so you can expand your own territories without opposition. And who is this? Volkov asked, his tone dismissive. Your human pet. The disrespect was calculated, deliberate, designed to make Theron look weak for having a human at his side. Time to shatter their expectations. I am Kiera Ashford Wolfsbane, I said clearly, letting my wolf rise enough that my eyes glowed pure gold. Luna, Queen of the Northern Territories, mate to Alpha King Theron Wolfsbane. And you will address me with respect, or you will leave this compound in pieces. Shocked silence. Then Kristoff laughed. Impossible. The Alpha King's fated mate died 10 years ago. Everyone knows. Everyone was wrong. Theron's power unfurled, filling the hall until the air crackled with it. My mate survived the rejection. She became the first feral human, rebuilt herself from nothing, and returned to reclaim her rightful place at my side. And now, gentlemen, you face not a weakened alpha but a bonded pair. The strongest possible pack leadership. I felt the shift in the room, pack members realizing who I was, what it meant. Confusion, shock, hope, fear. But mostly relief. Their alpha wasn't alone anymore, wasn't vulnerable. The council alphas exchanged glances, recalculating. This changes nothing, Volkov said, but his confidence had wavered. A Luna doesn't erase the security failures, the deaths. The security failures were caused by a traitor who was in league with you. I stepped forward, and my wolf's power, newly awakened, raw, and utterly uncontrolled, lashed out. Several wolves in the council entourage flinched. Marcus Stoneridge sold information to mercenaries funded by the European Council. We have bank records, digital trails, confessions from captured mercenaries. Kristoff's expression went carefully blank. You can't prove. We can prove everything. Theron's smile was all teeth. And we will. Unless you'd like to leave now, before I bring formal charges before the International Tribunal. Conspiracy to commit regicide carries a death sentence, I believe. The three alphas went very still. You're bluffing, Constantin said. Try me. Theron's eyes burned gold. I've spent 10 years being the diplomatic alpha king, the one who plays politics and makes compromises. But my mate has reminded me of something important. Sometimes you need to stop being diplomatic and start being dangerous. Through the bond, I felt his determination, his willingness to go to war if necessary, to protect his pack, his kingdom, and his mate. And I realized something profound he'd changed. The male who'd chosen politics over his mate 10 years ago was gone. The male standing beside me now would burn the world down before letting anyone threaten what was his. It was terrifying, and deeply, dangerously attractive. This isn't over, Kristoff said finally. The council will hear about this. Good. Theron gestured to his warriors. Escort our guests to the gates. Make sure they leave immediately. The council alphas were surrounded by armed warriors and marched out. Their power, their authority, their plans, all neutralized by two simple things: the truth and a bonded pair willing to fight for their kingdom. When they were gone, the hall erupted. Pack members shouting questions, demanding explanations, celebrating the departure of the council threat. Theron raised a hand, and silence fell instantly. My pack, he said, his voice carrying through the hall. You deserve the truth. 10 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I rejected my fated mate under pressure from political forces. I believed she died from the rejection, and I've carried that guilt ever since. But Kiera survived. She transformed, rebuilt herself, and returned. And now, with her at my side, I promise you this: no more compromises. No more choosing politics over what's right. We will defend this kingdom. We will protect every pack member. And we will never again bow to those who would see us weakened. The pack roared approval. And through it all, I stood beside my mate, feeling the bond pulse between us. We'd survived the unsurvivable, healed the unhealable, and now we stood united against the world. It should have been a happy ending, but I felt it through the bond. Theron's sudden spike of alarm. What? I asked quietly. The assassins, he murmured. The mercenaries we captured, they're too quiet, too calm, like they're waiting for. The explosion came from below, the cells, where we'd imprisoned the captured mercenaries. They have dead man switches, I breathed. They rigged themselves to. The second explosion rocked the foundation. Then a third, and I realized with horrible clarity, this was the real attack. Everything else, Marcus's betrayal, the siege, the council's visit, had all been set up. The mercenaries had been suicide bombers all along, and we'd brought them inside the compound. Evacuate! Theron roared. Everyone out. The pack scattered, but it was too late. The explosions had compromised the foundation. The ancient compound, built to last centuries, was coming down. Stone cracked. Support beams shattered. The ceiling began to collapse. Theron's power exploded outward, his alpha command forcing every wolf to shift and run, saving them, protecting them. But it left him exposed, exhausted, vulnerable, and a massive support beam broke free, falling directly toward him. I didn't think, just moved. I slammed into Theron, knocking him clear. The beam crushed down on me instead, pinning me beneath tons of stone and timber. Pain. Blinding, all-consuming pain. Through the bond, I felt Theron scream. Felt him trying to reach me to lift the beam to save me. But more of the ceiling was falling. If he didn't run, we'd both die. Go, I gasped through the bond. Through the connection only we shared. Save the pack. Get them out. No. His hands were on the beam, trying to lift. I won't leave you. Not again. Never again. Theron. Blood filled my mouth. My wolf was trying to heal, but the damage was too extensive. I love you. I'm sorry it took dying to say it. But I love you. You're not dying. He was crying, pulling at the beam with supernatural strength. The bond just healed. You just came back. You can't? I'm glad I came back. I smiled, tasting copper. I'm glad I got to hate you and love you and everything in between. Now go. Be the alpha king they need. No. No, I won't. His beta, a young wolf who'd been promoted in the chaos, grabbed him, started dragging him toward the exit. Theron fought, screaming my name, but more of the compound was collapsing. Through the bond, I felt his agony. Felt him making the impossible choice I'd made when I took the poison from his system, saving me by leaving me. The darkness was creeping in. My wolf was howling, raging against the dying of the light, and my last thought, as consciousness faded, was simple: worth it. He was worth it. This, us, was worth everything. Then nothing. Chapter 8, Feral Heart Reclaimed. I woke to the sound of my own heartbeat. Slow. Steady. Impossible. I should be dead. The beam had crushed my spine, punctured my lungs, shattered my ribs. I'd felt myself dying. Felt my wolf's desperate attempts to heal overwhelmed by the sheer catastrophic damage. But I was alive. I opened my eyes to soft light filtering through white curtains. A private room. Medical equipment beeping steadily. The scent of antiseptic and wolf. And Theron. He sat in a chair beside my bed, his head bowed, hands clasped in prayer or despair. I couldn't tell which. He looked like he'd aged a decade. His face was haggard, dark circles under his eyes, stubble covering his jaw. His clothes were rumpled, blood stained. He looked destroyed. Theron, I whispered. His head snapped up. For a moment, he just stared at me like I was a ghost. Then he was beside the bed, his hands on my face and my hair trembling violently. You're awake, he choked out. God, Kiera. You're awake. How long? 3 days? Tears tracked down his face. 3 days of you lying here barely breathing, the doctors said. They said you shouldn't have survived. The damage was too extensive. Even with your wolf, even with accelerated healing. But I did survive. I tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through my torso, my back. What happened? The compound, the pack, everyone got out. The compound is destroyed, but the pack survived. His hands were still on me, like he needed the physical contact to believe I was real. We lost 12 wolves in the initial explosions. And Marcus, obviously. But everyone else, they're safe. Relocated to the northern estate while we rebuild. The council alphas? A grim smile touched his lips. Fled when the compound started collapsing. But not before I sent evidence to the International Tribunal. Bank records, communication logs, confessions from the surviving mercenaries. Everything Marcus compiled before his betrayal. The council is investigating. Christoph, Volkov, and Konstantin are facing charges. Good. I closed my eyes, exhausted from just being awake. The pack. They know about me? They know everything. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. I told them who you are, what happened 10 years ago, how you survived. Some of them are angry at me. Some don't understand. But most are in awe of you, of your survival, of your strength. I laughed weakly. I don't feel strong. I feel like I got hit by a building. You did get hit by a building, and you survived that too. His voice cracked. Kiera, when that beam fell, when I felt your pain through the bond, I thought I was going to lose you again. I thought. Hey, I caught his hand, squeezed weakly. I'm still here, still fighting, still too stubborn to die properly. You saved me. He brought my hand to his lips, kissed my knuckles. Again, you keep saving me and I keep failing to protect you? That's not. It is. He cut me off gently. 10 years ago, I failed to protect you from the Council's political games. 3 days ago, I failed to protect you from a collapsing building. I'm supposed to be the Alpha King, supposed to be strong enough to keep my mate safe, and instead you keep throwing yourself in front of danger meant for me. Because that's what mates do, I said. They protect each other, even when it's stupid, even when it hurts. Then let me protect you now. He stood, and I saw the determination in his eyes. The doctors say you need weeks of recovery. Your spine was fractured in 3 places, your ribs shattered, your organs severely damaged. Your wolf healed most of it, but not all. You need time, rest, safety. I don't do well with rest. Too bad. You're doing it anyway. But he smiled, soft and genuine. I've spent 10 years without you. I can spend a few weeks making sure you heal properly. A knock at the door interrupted us. Dr. Ven entered, her expression lighting up when she saw me awake. Luna, she said warmly. It's good to see you conscious. How are you feeling? Like I was crushed by a building? Accurate. She approached with professional efficiency, checking monitors, taking vitals. You're healing remarkably well, all things considered. Your wolf is working overtime to repair the damage. But you'll need physical therapy, pain management, careful monitoring. I know the drill. I'd been through enough injuries in my mercenary days. How long until I'm operational? Operational? She raised an eyebrow. Luna, you nearly died. You need at least 6 weeks of. 2 weeks, I countered. 4, Theron said firmly. And that's non-negotiable. I wanted to argue, but the exhaustion was already pulling me under. My body was demanding rest, demanding time to heal. Fine, I muttered. 4 weeks. But I'm not staying in bed the whole time. We'll see. Dr. Ven smiled. For now, rest. I'll check on you in a few hours. She left, and silence settled over the room. Theron returned to his chair, but this time he took my hand, holding it like a lifeline. I have something for you, he said quietly. I've been waiting for you to wake up. He pulled something from his pocket, my silver locket. The one that had been sent to him. The one his mother had given me a lifetime ago. I thought this was lost when the compound collapsed, I said. I went back for it. His voice was rough. Once the fires were out, once we'd confirmed all pack members were accounted for. I went back into the ruins and I searched until I found it. Because it's yours. It's always been yours. He opened the locket. The photos were still there, him laughing and young, me dark-haired and hopeful. That's not me anymore, I whispered. That girl. She died in the woods 10 years ago. Maybe. He closed the locket, held it up. Or maybe she just transformed into someone stronger. Someone who survived the unsurvivable and came back to reclaim everything she'd lost. Theron, let me finish. He stood, moved to kneel beside the bed, and I realized with a jolt what he was doing. 10 years ago, I rejected you, he said formally, his alpha power thrumming through the words. I chose politics over my fated mate. I chose cowardice over courage, and I have regretted that choice every single day since. You don't have to. I do. His eyes burned gold. Kiera Ashford Wolfsbane. Will you accept me as your mate? Not because of the bond, not because of fate, but because I choose you. I will always choose you. From this moment until my last breath, I choose you above my crown, above my kingdom, above everything. Tears tracked down my face. That's not fair. I'm lying in a hospital bed. I'm vulnerable and drugged, and you can say no, he said gently. If you need more time, if you're not ready, if you want to keep hating me for another 10 years, I'll wait. I'll wait forever if that's what you need. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the male who'd destroyed me, and then spent a decade destroying himself with guilt. Who'd offered me his life, his crown, everything he had. Who'd changed from the political coward, who'd rejected me into someone willing to go to war for his mate. He wasn't the male I'd fallen in love with at 20. But maybe that was good, because I wasn't the girl who'd loved him either. We were both different now. Scarred, damaged, rebuilt from ruins. Maybe that made us perfect for each other. Yes, I whispered. I accept you. I choose you. Even though you're an idiot. Even though you drive me crazy. Even though part of me will probably always carry some anger for what happened. I can live with that. He slipped the locket around my neck, his fingers gentle. I can live with your anger, your pain, your complicated feelings. As long as I can live with you. Good. I pulled him up for a kiss. Because you're stuck with me now. For better or worse. Probably a lot of worse. I'm counting on it. He kissed me back, soft and reverent. And through the bond, I felt his love, his relief, his desperate gratitude that we'd been given this second chance. When we broke apart, I felt different. Lighter. Like some weight I'd been carrying for 10 years had finally lifted. What happens now? I asked. Now, he settled beside me on the bed, careful of my injuries. Now we heal, both of us. We rebuild the compound, rebuild the pack, rebuild our lives. Together. And the European Council. The alphas who tried to kill you will face justice. The tribunal is already moving forward with charges. His expression hardened. They wanted to see me weak. Instead, they've made me stronger. Made us stronger. No more compromises. No more compromises, he confirmed. No more choosing politics over what matters. You taught me that. I'm a terrible influence. You're the best influence I've ever had. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Rest now. I'll be here when you wake up. Promise. Always. I closed my eyes, feeling safe for the first time in 10 years. The bond hummed between us, whole and strong and real. My wolf curled contentedly in my chest, finally at peace. And I slept. 4 months later. The new compound was rising from the ruins of the old. I stood on a balcony overlooking the construction, watching pack members work together to build something stronger than what had been destroyed. Modern materials mixed with traditional wolf architecture. Security systems that even I couldn't breach easily. A fortress and a home. Behind me, I felt Theron approach. The bond alerted me before his scent did, before his footsteps registered. We were so attuned now that we could find each other across miles. Admiring our kingdom, he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Our pack, I corrected, leaning into him. I'm not a queen. I'm a Luna. There's a difference. You're both. His lips brushed my neck. The pack adores you. Especially after you led the defense training last week. I smiled. The pack had been skeptical of me at first. The resurrected mate, the feral human, the mercenary who'd infiltrated their territory. But I'd won them over through action. Training their warriors. Improving their security. Standing beside Theron at every council meeting and pack gathering. And by being honest about my past, my pain, my survival. Vulnerability, it turned out, was its own kind of strength. The tribunal reached a verdict, Theron said. Christoph Volkov and Konstantin have been stripped of their alpha positions. Their territories are being redistributed to the smaller packs they tried to destroy. Poetic justice. Your idea worked. Protecting the small packs, empowering them instead of consolidating power. The Council is adopting it as official policy. He turned me in his arms. You've changed wolf politics, Kiera. Made it better. More fair. I just suggested what seemed obvious, but I was pleased. Using my survival, my experience, to actually help others. It felt right. Any word on the mercenary networks. Dismantled. Your contacts came through. He smiled. Dimitri sends his regards, by the way, and requests that you stop scaring him by nearly dying. Tell him I'll try. I'd kept in touch with my old handler, my old life. Kade Frost might be retired, but those skills, those connections, they were too valuable to waste. Speaking of Dimitri, he found something interesting. Reports of other feral humans. Not many, but they exist. Theron's eyes widened. Others who survived rejection. Maybe. Or maybe wolves who lost their wolves for different reasons. But if they're out there, we should help them. Give them a place. A pack. You want to create a sanctuary. I want to make sure no one else has to survive alone the way I did. I met his gaze. If we can use our experience, our pain, to help others, then we will. He kissed me, soft and certain. Whatever you need, whatever you want to build, I'm with you. I pulled back, studying his face. 4 months of healing, physical and emotional. 4 months of learning to trust again, to love again, to believe that maybe happy endings were possible after all. I forgive you, I said quietly. He went very still. What? I forgive you. For the rejection, for the last 10 years, for all of it. I touched his face. I'm not saying I've forgotten. The scars are still there and they always will be. But I forgive you. Because holding on to that anger, it's not serving me anymore. It's not protecting me. It's just keeping me from fully embracing what we could be. Tears tracked down his face. Kiera, I love you, I continued. Not the way I loved you at 20, when everything was simple and fate felt like magic. I love you now, knowing exactly who you are. Knowing your failures, your weaknesses, your capacity for cowardice and courage both. And I choose to love you anyway. I don't deserve. Shut up. I kissed him. You don't get to decide what you deserve. I do. And I've decided you deserve a second chance. We both do. He pulled me closer, his arms tight around me. Through the bond, I felt his overwhelming relief, his love, his gratitude. I will spend every day of my life being worthy of this, he whispered against my hair. A few of us, I know. I smiled against his chest. I'm counting on it. We stood there as the sun set over our territory. Our pack, our future. 2 broken souls who'd found their way back to each other. Who'd survived rejection and betrayal and literal buildings collapsing on them. Who'd chosen love over hate, forgiveness over revenge, building over destroying. What are you thinking? Theron asked after a long moment. That I'm glad I didn't kill you when I had the chance. He laughed, deep and genuine and free. Me too, though I wouldn't have blamed you if you had. I know. That's part of why I didn't. I turned in his arms, looked up at him. You know what the mercenary motto is? Survival is the best revenge. Yes. I was wrong. Survival isn't the best revenge. I touched the locket around my neck, the one I wore every day now, a reminder of what we'd been and what we'd become. The best revenge is living well, building something beautiful from the ashes, proving that what tried to break you actually made you stronger. Then we're enacting the best revenge every day. His hand covered mine over the locket. Together. I agreed, and there in the fading light, we kissed. Not desperately, not frantically, but with the slow certainty of two people who'd fought their way through hell and come out the other side. My wolf hummed contentedly. The bond sang between us, and for the first time in 10 years, I felt completely, utterly whole. Not because the bond had healed, not because my wolf had returned, not even because Theron had changed, but because I'd changed. I'd transformed from a broken, rejected mate into someone who chose her own fate, who survived the unsurvivable, who decided that forgiveness was stronger than revenge, and love was stronger than hate. I was Kiera Ashford Wolfsbane, the feral human who refused to die, the Luna Queen who rebuilt herself from nothing, the mate who chose her alpha not because fate demanded it, but because she wanted to. And this was just the beginning. EPI Logo E. 1 year later, the sanctuary opened on the anniversary of my rejection. Poetic, maybe, or just the universe's sense of irony. Either way, it stood at the edge of Wolfsbane territory, a compound designed specifically for feral humans and wolves who'd lost their wolves. We'd found 17 so far, scattered across 3 continents. Men and women who'd survived rejection, trauma, magical accidents. Who lived half, lives in the human world, mourning what they'd lost. Now they had a home. I stood at the entrance, watching the first residents arrive. Some came alone, wary and defensive. Others brought family members, humans who'd helped them survive. All of them carried scars, physical and emotional. All of them had stories that echoed mine. "They're looking at you like you're a miracle," Theron said beside me. "I'm not a miracle. I'm just stubborn," but I smiled. "They are too," they survived. "That makes them miracles." A young woman approached, maybe 22, with haunted eyes and silvered scars up her arms, just like mine. "Luna?" she asked hesitantly. "I'm Sarah. I was rejected 6 months ago. They told me about this place. About you. About how you survived and got your wolf back." "I did," I confirmed gently. "But Sarah, I need you to understand something. My wolf came back under very specific circumstances. The bond healed because my mate and I worked through our issues. That won't be everyone's path." "I know." She looked down. "My mate is dead. He rejected me and then died in a car accident 2 days later. So there's no path back for me. But I thought, maybe I could learn to live with it. Learn to be okay with being human." My heart ached for her. For all of them. "That's exactly what this place is for," I said. "You'll learn to survive. To thrive. To build a life that isn't defined by what you lost. And you'll do it surrounded by people who understand. Who've been there. Will you teach us? How to fight, how to be strong, how to..." Her voice cracked. "How to stop feeling like half of me is missing." "I can teach you how to survive the feeling," I said honestly. "How to build armor from pain. How to become something new from the ashes of what you were. But I can't promise the missing feeling goes away. Some scars never fully heal. But you got your wolf back," she said. "You got your happy ending. I got a happy ending. Not the one I expected. Not the one I thought I wanted." I glanced at Theron, who smiled at me with such love it still made my breath catch. "But it's mine. And you'll find yours too. Different from mine, unique to you. But real." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. For surviving. For showing us it's possible." She moved past me into the sanctuary, and I watched her go with a mixture of hope and heartache. "You're changing the world," Theron said quietly. "One broken wolf at a time. One feral human at a time," I corrected. "We're not broken. We're transformed. Is there a difference?" "All the difference in the world." I leaned into him, feeling the bond steady and strong between us. Broken implies we need to be fixed, return to what we were. Transformed means we've become something new. Something that couldn't exist without the pain we endured. "Like you?" "Like us," I said. "Both of us." You transformed to Theron. From the alpha who chose politics over love to the mate who'd burn the world down to protect what's his. Or world, he murmured back. Our future. Our feral hearts, I added with a smile. Still wild. Still fierce. Just no longer alone. He kissed me as the sun set over the sanctuary, over our territory, over the life we'd built from ruins and rage and impossible second chances. And somewhere in my chest, my wolf, once dormant, once dead, now fully alive, howled her joy to the rising moon. Answering her was Theron's wolf, and the wolves of our pack, and the distant howls of feral humans learning to be whole again. We were a symphony of survival, a testament to transformation. A pack built not on perfection, but on the beautiful, terrible truth that sometimes you have to break completely before you can heal properly. I'd been broken. I'd been rejected. I'd been left for dead. And I'd survived it all to become exactly who I was meant to be. Not in spite of the pain. Because of it, my name was Kiera Ashford Wolfsbane. I was the first feral human. I was Luna Queen of the Northern Territories. I was a survivor, a warrior, a mate, and a leader. And I was finally, beautifully, impossibly home. Author's note. Thank you for listening to Kiera's tale. May we all find our own paths from pain to power, from rage to peace, from broken to transformed. See you in the next story. With love, Freya.